Chapter 756. It was the end of the year again, and it was time for the annual voting. This kind of voting, ranking, and so on always made people feel a sense of anger. I personally do not like to ask for votes, and everyone knows that. Normally, I would not bother you guys every few days. But it did not seem like it would be a good idea to keep quiet. 3 days and 2 sleeps was not a person who liked to force things. He was too utilitarian, and that was very boring. Over the years, the various changes in the online literature community were both good and bad. Everyone was familiar with the situation on Qidien. When things like vote rigging have become commonplace, and there are even people who call it operations. As a bystander, I can only say that this is very sad, very disgusting, and also very chilling. This meant that there were more and more people who were willing to join the bad guys, and there were fewer and fewer people who were willing to stick to the bottom line. There were more and more people who were thinking about unfair competition, and there were fewer and fewer people who were thinking about how to write a good novel. But no matter what the situation was, I was still me. I understand. When a person used despicable means to gain honor and profit, they had already lost something more precious, and they might never be able to get it back. Here, I will not shout, brothers and sisters, nor will I passionately ask everyone to fight with me, nor will I cry for my parents, act cute, and roll on the ground. I only hope that I can get some support from the audience. If you like Thriller Paradise and think that this novel is well written, then please vote for this book during the annual voting. I do not need to get a ranking. I just want to see a real vote at the end of the voting, to let me know that there are still many people who like this book, and that will be enough. Even if this book ends up empty-handed this year, for me, there will be no regret. Because each of your votes, each of your sincere support, is more valuable than the so-called ranking. Chapter 757. He sure knows how to have fun. Fong Bujua looked at the newspaper in the bicycle pocket and his mouth twitched slightly. Although he was somewhat dissatisfied and had some doubts, he still endured it. If he turned around and asked the ghost postman loudly, there were only 2 outcomes. 1, he would be ignored. 2, he would be electrocuted. There's no other way. Let's see what he wants. After the buzzing sound went away, Brother Bujua simply parked the bicycle, took out the newspaper from the bicycle pocket, and slowly unfolded it in front of his eyes. The first thing that caught his eye was the name of the publication itself. Otaku Town Pioneer. Then there was the headline, Ghost Postman wins Otaku Post Office Employee of the Year award again. What was quite funny was that the picture accompanying this news was just a landscape photo with no one around. This reporter is quite hardworking. If the tire marks on the ground were not drawn by him, it means that he really caught Brother Ghost riding a bicycle. Fong Bujua read the newspaper and read, wait, before this, in such a small town there was a newspaper? No matter if it was windy, rainy, scorching sun, hailstorm, typhoon, fog, we couldn't see the ghost postman running around. But we all know very well that he has always been at his post, conscientious, shining, and contributing to the construction of a harmonious and beautiful otaku town. Of course, his achievements are inseparable from the wise leadership of the town's postmaster, Mr. Norman Nelson. It is also inseparable from the great otaku spirit that the town upholds. The writer of this article is a new member of Beep Society, isn't he? After reading the first part of the article, Fong Bujua could not help but grumble. Classic bullsh *t, classic twist, and classic flattery. The rest of the report was basically the same. It mainly listed some deeds of the ghost postman's diligent work and forcibly took some of the credit to the leaders. So, it was not easy to be a model worker these days. If you want to enjoy the honor you have earned, you have to thank the country, the party, and your leaders. This is the daily newspaper on Christmas Day. Most of the news reported on it should be yesterday's news. After Fong Bujua finished reading the first page of the newspaper, he glanced at the date in the corner. However, This headline doesn't seem to have much value. I already knew this from the post office's manual, he muttered as he flipped through the newspaper. Unexpectedly, when he flipped to the second page of the newspaper, something strange happened. What do you mean? Feng Bujue narrowed his eyes and flipped through a few more pages. Soon, he discovered that other than the headline on the front page and the advertisement at the end of the page, an advertisement for a bicycle, there was not a single word in the middle of the stack of newspapers in his hand. But the layout on each page had already been arranged, and the illustrations had already been inserted. Invisible ink? Wordless heavenly book? Two thoughts quickly flashed through Feng Bujue's mind. His gaze moved rapidly across the paper, looking for clues. After he carefully examined it, he confirmed that it was true that the words were not printed. This is quite F*King creative. Brother Ju laughed. Is this really a newspaper or an English test paper to talk through pictures? As he joked around, he quickly flipped through the blank pages of the newspaper and memorized the contents of all the illustrations. Not sure if it was a coincidence, the number of illustrations was a total of 13. 10 minutes later, Brother Ju, who was heading north, arrived at the location of the shop on the map. Like the other shops in the town, the door was closed, and there was a closed sign hanging on the door. Looking through the glass door, he was sure that there was no one in the shop, and it looked like it had been abandoned for a long time. Oh, as expected. Feng Bujue looked at the door of the shop and smiled bitterly. 2 seconds later, he got off the bicycle and parked it. Then, he picked up a large stone on the side of the road. Bang bang bang! He swung his arm and hit the glass door 3 times. In the end, only a small white dot was left on the glass. There was not even a crack. His arm, on the other hand, was numb from the impact. Is this necessary? Feng Bujue took 2 steps back and threw the stone away. Is this bulletproof glass? He really did not understand why the glass door of an ordinary grocery store was so sturdy. This is too much. Brother Ju panted. He reached into his shirt pocket and took out the Nokia 3310. Stop. Suddenly, the ethereal female voice that had appeared once before rang out again. Feng Bujue heard it and quickly stopped. He turned around and scanned the area. Sure enough, this fellow is not a human either. While searching for her in the fog, he thought to himself, she was clearly blocked on the other side of the bridge earlier, and now she has reappeared in the town. How did you enter the town? Feng Bujue could not find her specific location, so he decided to ask her a few questions first. Is there a rescue team outside the town? I have been here all this time. I have never left, the woman replied. Her voice echoed in the fog. It was difficult to find the source of her voice. Then, let me ask you this. Facing this answer that was as good as nothing, Feng Bujue immediately changed his question. How did you cross that bridge? But this time, the woman ignored Brother Ju's question and said, Dave, I can't explain too much to you, but you have to believe me. I want to help you. She sounded very sincere. Don't destroy the buildings in this town. It won't do you any good, and it will cause irreparable consequences. I can believe you, Feng Bujue said. But you have to answer me first. How did you bang 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 bang? At that moment, the sound of hurried chains came from all around them, and it drowned out Feng Bujue's voice. What's going on? Feng Bujue was shocked. Judging from the sound, there were at least 20 old-fashioned bicycles riding at the same time. Is there more than one phantom postman? At the same time, the ethereal female voice suddenly shouted, This is your chance. Open your eyes. Her voice pierced through the noise and reached Brother Ju's ears. Open my eyes? Feng Bujue knew that the man's order was important, but he could not understand the meaning behind it because his eyes were undeniably open. Fortunately, his confusion did not last long. The next second there was a sudden change. Chapter 758. Gurgle gurgle. Gurgle gurgle gurgle. the sound of liquid bubbling suddenly appeared in Feng Bujue's ears. At the same second, he realized something. His eyes were closed. The scenery before his eyes disappeared, and he was surrounded by darkness. The cold mist around him seemed to have thickened by dozens of times in an instant, firmly wrapping around him. "What's going on?" Feng Bujue gasped. "Have I been attacked by some kind of mental attack? Why do I feel like my body, including my lungs, are filled with liquid? And there is no sense of discomfort. D. At that moment, he heard 2 more beeps. Then came a voice that sounded very similar to the system audio. "Warning, tester 8775 is waking up. Warning, tester 8775 is waking up. Hey! Who is responsible for that cabin?" "It's Anton, sir. He has gone for lunch, sir." "Then hurry up and move your ass, go over there and do it for him." "Yes, sir." This muffled conversation that came from an unknown place rang out a few seconds later. "Who is it?" Feng Bujue wanted to ask, but he soon realized that he could not open his mouth. He could only ask in his heart, "What kind of development is this? Where am I?" He wanted to open his eyes, but his eyelids felt as heavy as a mountain, and this simple thought caused a splitting headache. "My whole body is weak. All my senses are reduced to the level of a vegetable, and I can't even open the game menu." Feng Bujue did not panic. He quickly and calmly analyzed the situation. "No matter what, just like the woman said, I have to open my eyes as soon as possible. This is the perfect chance for me to understand the setting of this scenario. The concentration of the solution is increasing. Preparing for an emergency pulse. Counting down from 5. 5, 4, 3. The emotionless voice said again. Even though Brother Bujue did not fully understand what it was saying, he knew this was probably bad news for him. 2, 1. At the last second, at the last moment, Feng Bujue used his amazing willpower to resist the indescribable headache and opened his eyes. However, his vision only recovered for about a second. A second later, a piercing pain that exceeded the limits of what a human brain could endure assaulted him, causing his body to violently convulse. Then, he fell into a state where he lost all 5 senses. However, Brother Ju was no ordinary person. In that short second, he withstood the soreness of his retina and successfully saw something through a layer of transparent, pale green liquid and 2 layers of glass, or at least glass. He saw a person. To be more precise, it was an adult man wearing a light-colored bodysuit floating in the liquid. Moreover, the man's appearance. Feng Bujue had seen him once, the man in the felt hat. Phew! It felt like only a moment had passed, yet it also felt like a long time had passed. In short, when Feng Bujue regained control of his body, the first thing he did was take a deep breath. Then, he suddenly opened his eyes and realized that he was leaning against the glass door of the shop, sitting on the ground. The surroundings were still shrouded in fog, and the ethereal female voice and the sound of the bicycle chains had disappeared. And next to his hand, a blank piece of paper had appeared out of thin air. It feels like I have returned, and somehow obtained a crucial item. Feng Bujue glanced at the game menu. His life points and stamina points had not changed, and there was no debuff. What I saw earlier should not be an illusion, and it did not appear to be a memory fragment. There is a very high chance that it is a reality that happened in real time. He patted the dust off his body, picked up the paper, and stood up. In other words, this small town that I am in now, or rather this world, might not be real. This hypothesis changed Feng Bujue's train of thought. Ever since he entered the scenario, all of his knowledge and speculation had to be re-examined on this basis. Things are getting more and more complicated. Even though he was thinking, Brother Ju did not stop moving. No matter what happened, there was one principle that would not change. There was nothing wrong with following the mission. Therefore, as Feng Bujue mulled over the earlier plot, he got back on the bicycle and continued to move forward. Now, here comes the question. Am I playing the role of Dave or the so-called Tester 8775? Is Dave the name of Tester 8775, or is this a character that Tester 8775 is playing? Brother Jew thought. What kind of existence is that man in the felt hat? Is he just a projection that appeared in my mind unconsciously, or is he a crucial clue? Feng Bujue struggled in the whirlpool of thought, searching for various possible answers. The hypothesis about the clones of the house owners was no longer important. If this was really a world that existed on the level of consciousness, then the appearance of these people would be meaningless. Even if they all looked like dogs, it would be reasonable. He arranged his thoughts as he rode the bicycle, and before he knew it, he had arrived at the northern cemetery. This was a very ordinary-looking cemetery. On the vast grassland, there were stone tombstones neatly erected one after another, and in front of each tombstone was a small mound slightly raised. Where is that abandoned mailbox? Feng Bujue pedaled the bicycle and moved down the path between the cemeteries, looking for the mailbox that could be used to contact the ghost postman. Soon, he saw one at the western edge of the cemetery. It was a dark green, cylindrical mailbox. There was a gap at the top for mail delivery, and the mailbox had the words Otaku Town Post Office printed on it. Feng Bujue parked the bicycle and walked to the back of the mailbox. He looked at the mailbox and realized that there was a very small circular lock tied to it. It doesn't look that hard to break. He looked at the lock and hesitated for a moment. In the end, he decided not to use brute force to open it. But, from the overall atmosphere of this scenario, I'd better not use brute force to break it open. He walked back to the front of the mailbox and took out the blank letter paper and Dave's ballpoint pen. He placed the paper on top of the mailbox and started to write, "Dear Mr. Ghost Postman, how are you?" Considering the fact that he only had one piece of paper, it was impossible for him to change anything, so Brother Jew was very serious when he wrote the letter. Every sentence was written after careful deliberation. "My name is Dave, a temporary postman at the Otaku Town Post Office. I think you still remember me, because we've met more than once today, and you even shocked me once. Of course, I have no problem with that. You did not do anything wrong. I am new here and I don't know the rules." Laugh. Back to the topic, the reason I am writing to you is because I have a few things that I wish to ask you. Firstly, can you tell me the command codes of the owners of number 7 3rd Avenue, number 10 4th Avenue, number 3 5th Avenue, number 9 6th Avenue, number 7 7th Avenue, number 1 8th Avenue, number 3 9th Avenue, number 9 10th Avenue, number 7 11th Avenue, number 1 12th Avenue, and number 3 13th Avenue? Second, I want to confirm with you, are you really working in this town voluntarily? Third, what kind of message is hidden in the newspaper that you gave me earlier? Fourth, I want to ask, why are all the shops in this town closed? Why can Commissioner Nelson kill people as he pleases? And how can I gain your approval to become the official postman of Otaku Town? If it is convenient, please answer my questions as soon as possible. Thank you very much. Sincerely, Dave. After finishing the letter with what he thought was a neat handwriting, Feng Bujue looked through it again. After confirming that there was no problem with the content, he folded the letter and shoved it into the mailbox. Chapter 759. Feng Bujue did not know when and how the ghost postman would reply to his letter. He was not even sure if the postman would reply. Regarding this information, the fat NPCs said that they could not answer him, so Brother Jew could only play it by ear. So, now it's time to deliver the 10th letter. After leaving the mailbox, Feng Bujue returned to the bicycle and said, "I should go replenish my stamina points first." When he got on the bicycle, he checked the game menu again. Now, his life points had slowly recovered to 54%, but his stamina points were only at 452, 4800. This was the difficulty of calculating stamina points based on the character's physical body. In some of the nightmare scenarios that Brother Jew had experienced before, he had encountered this kind of setting several times. Seeking poison in the wild was a good example. No matter how high the player's level was, how many items and skills could increase stamina points, in this kind of nightmare scenario, the player would have as much stamina points as the character that they were playing. If the player used the stamina points recklessly, the effect would be self-explanatory. I should think of a way to get some supplies first. Feng Bujue thought about it and made a decision. Before Brother Spectre replies to me, it will be extremely difficult for me to decipher the command code on my own. After all, the information that I have collected from the recipients is enough. There is no need to use my last bit of stamina to do something that will not benefit me. After deciding on the next step of the plan, he took out the mini-map of the small town from his pocket. After looking at it for a few seconds, he set off. At noon, Feng Bujue arrived at the only bar in town. The name of the bar was Otaku. It was about 100 square meters in size, smaller than the post office. The reason Brother Jew came here was simple. According to the illustration on the mini-map, this Western-style bar had a door that could not be closed. Instead of calling it a door, it was more like two movable wooden planks. Humph. It's impossible that I can't get in now, right? Feng Bujue pushed the door open with a smile and walked into Otaku bar. We haven't opened for business yet, sir. Brother Jew was greeted with this sentence. Feng Bujue raised his eyes to look at the speaker. It was a bald man about 2 meters tall. He was about 40 years old and was dressed as a bartender. When Brother Jew entered, he was standing behind the bar, quietly wiping glasses. I won't be here for too long. Feng Bujue ignored the man's advice and walked straight to the bar counter. During this process, he had already scanned the environment of the entire bar. Cheap linen wallpaper, cheap wooden floor, cheap bar counter, cheap tables and chairs, cheap sofa, cheap billiard table. Beside the billiard table, there was a bearded man dressed as a cowboy, playing billiard alone. I'm sorry, it's not a matter of how long I stay. Seeing Brother Jew sit down as if nothing happened, the bald bartender's expression changed slightly. We don't receive any guests outside of business hours. Please come back after 5 o'clock in the evening. Okay, Yang, let him sit for a while. Suddenly, the bearded cowboy at the billiard table interrupted. This gentleman doesn't look like a troublemaker. While speaking, he took a shot, straightened up, and looked at Brother Jew. Am I right, sir? Of course. Feng Bujue smiled at the bearded man, then turned his head and looked at the bartender. Can I have something to drink? Water is fine. The bald bartender looked at Brother Jew for 2 seconds, then took out a clean cup and poured a glass of cold water. Excuse me. Is there anything to eat? Anything is fine. Feng Bujue said again. This time, the bald bartender looked at him suspiciously. Are you sure you have enough money to pay, sir? When he said this sentence, he deliberately emphasized the word sir. Yes. Feng Bujue only wanted to eat and drink, so his attitude was very polite. As he spoke, he reached for his wallet. If you need, I can. Oh, no, young man, don't be like this. At this time, the bearded man loudly stopped Brother Jew's actions and quickly walked over. When he reached the bar, the bearded man looked at the bartender and said, Yang, how can you talk to a customer like this? Do you think this gentleman doesn't even have money to buy a glass of water? No, boss. The bald bartender replied. I'm just worried that he'll be like those drunkards and homeless people, coming in to eat and drink without any money. So this cowboy uncle is the boss. Feng Bujue heard this and thought to himself. In fact, at the beginning of the conversation between the two, he was already vaguely aware of this. Now that Yang directly called out the word boss, his guess was confirmed. Ah, Yang, you worry too much. The bearded man patted Brother Jew's shoulder. Looking at this gentleman's complexion and clothes, I know he's not that kind of person. He snapped his fingers and gave Yang a look. Come, give me some snacks, I'm hungry too. All right. Since you've said so. The bald bartender shrugged his shoulders and replied. A few seconds later, he took out 2 small bamboo bowls lined with paper towels from the bar. Both bowls were filled with fried snacks. Thank you, buddy, Feng Bujue said to Yang, then looked at the bearded man and said, Thank you too, boss. Then, Brother Ju grabbed a bunch of snacks and stuffed them into his mouth like he was stuffing a duck. He was indeed hungry, and he was very hungry. This hunger was no doubt simulated by the scenario. It was similar to muscle fatigue, and it had to be alleviated or else it would not disappear on its own. Ha ha ha! The bearded man looked at Brother Ju's table manners and laughed. Young man, you can't treat this as a meal. I know, but all the restaurants in town are closed. Feng Bujue puffed out his cheeks and replied with a muffled voice. This seemingly casual answer was actually a test. Brother Ju had stayed in town for so long, and he finally met 2 relatively normal-looking NPCs. He did not want to miss this opportunity to get more information. Therefore, without batting an eyelid, he mentioned a strange but objective fact to see the 2 NPCs' reaction. Ha ha ha! To his surprise, the bearded man laughed heartily and replied, You sure know how to joke, young man. It's broad daylight and it's Christmas, so why would the shops be closed? Look. He raised his hand to point at the entrance of the bar. Isn't the restaurant across the street open? Across the street? Feng Bujue was stunned. He looked in the direction that the man was pointing at, and all he could see was a white fog. He could not even see several meters away from the entrance of the shop, much less the scenery on the other side of the street. Ha, ha, ha! Brother Ju laughed drily. You're right. He had no idea whether the NPC was telling the truth or not, but he did not want to argue with him. Oh, by the way, I haven't introduced myself. The bearded man did not continue the topic of the restaurant. He took off his cowboy hat and extended his hand to Brother Ju. I'm the owner here. They all call me Sagittarius. Nice to meet you, Feng Bujue replied politely. I'm Dave. He wiped his hand on his jacket before shaking the man's hand. This is my bartender, Yang. Then, Sagittarius raised his hand to signal the bald bartender. Rumor has it that he used to be a mafia member, but later he... Hey! Yang immediately shouted, interrupting his boss. Sagittarius shrugged and laughed. Ha ha ha. Okay, he's a decent man. I didn't say anything. Nice to meet you, Yang. Feng Bujue pretended not to hear anything and greeted Yang calmly. Yang only nodded at him, and the expression on his face was still serious and cold. Who are these 2? Feng Bujue finished 1 bowl of snacks in less than a minute and moved on to the second bowl. One is overly friendly and the other is overly cold. And based on their appearance and their names, if Sagittarius can be counted as a name, they both look like mafia members. A thought came to him. Could it be there's a side quest here? Chapter 760. In the next 10 minutes, Feng Bujue finished 5 bowls of snacks and used a glass of whiskey to drink 8 glasses of water. When he opened the game menu again, the feeling of hunger and thirst had completely disappeared. His stamina points had returned to 190-24800, and even his life points had increased to more than 70%. It looked like in this scenario, the recovery and decay of the various stamina points were the same, and they were all based on the character's actual physical appearance. In other words, the stamina points would recover quickly. Other than that, while Brother Ju chewed on the food, he did not forget to communicate with the NPCs. Even though his speech was slightly slurred, the 2 NPCs had good hearing, and they could understand Brother Ju perfectly. Therefore, he managed to get close to the 2 easily. All right, we've talked a lot about me. Feng Bujue, who had finished his meal, drank another glass of water to rinse his mouth, and then changed the topic. How about we talk about the two of you? Once that was said, the expression on the shooter and Yang's face changed immediately. However, Brother Ju did not care about that. He did not give them time to think and quickly asked, I wonder how long you two have been in this town? Kacha, Kacha. 1.5 seconds later, the two guns were aimed at Feng Bujue's temple and forehead respectively. In that 1.5 seconds, Yang pulled out a shotgun from under the bar counter at lightning speed. The shooter, on the other hand, pulled out a revolver from his body. His speed was as fast as lightning, perhaps even a real cowboy could not compare to him. Oh. Calm down. Calm down. Feng Bujue quickly raised his hands, stood up from the bar counter, and took half a step back. Speak. Who are you? Yang demanded in a cold voice. Did the FBI send you here? He doesn't look like one, the shooter said. He looks more like the CIA. His gun slowly moved down. How about we break one of his legs first, and then we can slowly interrogate him? Hey! Don't do anything stupid. Feng Bujue widened his eyes, and he used a very exaggerated acting to show his fear. He added, I'm just a postman who came to town to apply for a job. Yes, you've already said that, the shooter said with a grin. But we don't believe a word of it. He glanced at Yang. Isn't that right, old friend? That's right, Yang added. At first, I didn't realize it. I thought he was just a scammer. He paused and looked back at Sagittarius. It wasn't until you gave me a look that I realized. Why would someone walk into a bar in the middle of the day just to have a drink and snack? At this point, he gripped the gun in his hand even tighter. He glared at Brother Ju and said, It is obvious that you are here for us. Hey, I don't even know any of you. Feng Bujue was breaking out in cold sweat. But the two continued to ignore him. Stop joking around, Sagittarius said with a smile. I knew something was wrong with you the moment you stepped into the bar. The reason I asked you to stay was to test you. He scoffed. Humph. Temporary postman? Who are you trying to fool? He tightened his grip on the gun and looked like he was ready to pull the trigger at any time. Just last night, someone came to the shop and claimed that he was going to the post office for an interview. Even if there was a temporary postman in town today, it should be him. Wait. Feng Bujue suddenly raised his voice. The person you're talking about. Was he wearing a fancy felt hat? The shooter heard this and was obviously stunned. Seeing the shooter's reaction, Brother Ju calmed down. He knew there was a chance. How did you know? The shooter and Yang exchanged glances and asked. I saw him at the post office this morning. Feng Bujue answered truthfully. He and I both came for an interview, but he didn't get the chance to be a temporary postman. Oh? Yang asked suspiciously. Why? He looked Brother Ju up and down and said, Is it because you're a little more handsome than him? No. Feng Bujue shook his head. It's because he was a few minutes late and Director Nelson shot him. Hearing this, the shooter and Yang muttered at the same time. 2 seconds later, they said in unison, That's possible. F***CK. What kind of people are they helping? Feng Bujue thought to himself. Is this town a re-employment center for retired assassins? After hearing that someone was shot because he was late, they showed an expression of, I see. Wait. After a few seconds, the shooter seemed to remember something. He said, How do I know you're not making this up? Maybe you came to our bar last night and heard what the man in the felt hat said. Now you're just using a pre-planned excuse to get away with it. That's right. Yang agreed. How can you prove that the man was shot dead by Nelson? How can you prove that you went to the post office this morning? That. Feng Bujue tilted his head and glanced at his jacket pocket. If you two agree, I can take out a temporary post office work permit from my jacket pocket and show it to you. It has my name and Director Nelson's signature on it. He paused for a moment and added, In my wallet, there's a driver's license with my name and the photo. The shooter and Yang looked at each other and seemed to believe him. However, they still did not put down the guns in their hands. Take out both. After a moment, the shooter looked at Brother Ju and said, Slow down. Yes, that's it. Feng Bujue followed the shooter's instructions and took out his temporary work permit and slowly placed it on the bar counter. Then, he took out his wallet from his trouser pocket and flipped to the page with the driver's license. He held it in front of the two men. Ha 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 ha! At this time, the shooter suddenly laughed and put away the revolver in his hand, as if nothing had happened. He stepped forward and gave Brother Ju a hug. Man, I thought you were from the CIA, ha ha. Yang maintained his cold image and silently put the shotgun back under the bar counter. It seems that the misunderstanding between us has been resolved. I have to buy you a drink, young man. The archer's ferocious and shrewd temperament vanished in an instant. As if he had schizophrenia, he turned back into the amiable, warm, and friendly uncle. Yang, hurry up and pour a glass of wine for our friend to calm him down. Before he finished, Yang had already pushed a glass of wine with ice cubes before Brother Ju. In less than 10 seconds, he had already prepared a glass of wine for himself and his boss. To our new postman. The shooter was the first to raise his glass. To the new postman. Yang also raised his glass and said calmly. Looking at the two burning eyes, Feng Bujue stared at them and also raised his glass. Thank you, the three of them raised their glasses and downed them all in one gulp. Feng Bujue was not a person who liked to drink. He hated the feeling of alcohol dissolving in his throat. But, just because he didn't like it didn't mean he couldn't drink. After he finished the drink, his expression was no different from drinking a glass of water. Where were we talking earlier? We were. No comment. Yang continued Brother Ju's words and coldly said these 4 words. Obviously, he still remembered the question Feng Bujue asked earlier. Okay. Feng Bujue was not going to ask for a rebuff. He had already deduced from the 2 NPCs' reactions that unless they told him themselves, it was best not to ask about their origins. Let's talk about something else. Are there a lot of fat people living in our town? Ha. The shooter revealed a sly smile. He did not answer Brother Ju's question. Instead, he said, Listen, Dave, you have to pay a price for asking around the bar. Do you understand? Oh, I understand. Feng Bujue opened his wallet and pulled out a $5 bill. This should be. That's not what I meant. Unexpectedly, the shooter pushed the money back. I don't want the money. You don't want the money. You want the person? Feng Bujue narrowed his eyes and gave the shooter a strange look. The shooter did not care about his reaction. He just said, When you opened your wallet earlier, I saw a membership card for the dart club. Feng Bujue paused for half a second before replying, You mean, there's a reason why people call me the shooter continued. Because I'm very accurate at everything I play. Not only with guns, but also with bows and arrows, slingshots, bowling, billiards, and darts. They are all my strengths. So, Feng Bujue tried to figure out what the shooter meant and said, You, who can't find a match in this small town. You want to play with me, a member of the dart club? Ha. The shooter replied with a smile. 1 round, 1 question. Every time you lose, you have to answer 1 question from me. Feng Bujue asked. That's right, the shooter replied. What if I lose? Feng Bujue was very sensitive to the details of bets. He would not agree without thinking. If you lose a total of 10 rounds, you have to leave your temporary work permit, the shooter replied. Huh. Feng Bujue thought for a moment. What do you need that for? It's only valid for 1. I have my reasons, the shooter interrupted Feng Bujue. The marksman interrupted Brother Ju. From his tone and expression, he seemed to know more about this document than Brother Ju did. Feng Bujue hesitated for a moment. You have to tell me the specific rules first, then I can decide, Hearing this, the Sagittarius's lips curled into a smile, like a fisherman seeing a fish take the bait. Heh. Sure. Chapter 761. The rules proposed by the shooter were naturally different from a regular darts competition. Feng Bujue was already mentally prepared for this. He didn't think that anyone would bother with a darts competition in a bar. But Brother Ju didn't expect the shooter to come up with a format that was, shoot an apple? When the shooter said these 3 words, Feng Bujue immediately repeated them as if he wanted to make sure he heard correctly. Yes, shoot an apple, the shooter replied leisurely after rolling a cigarette for himself and taking a puff. With darts? Feng Bujue asked again. With darts, the shooter replied. Oh. Feng Bujue nodded. His "oh" didn't mean that he understood anything. He was just stalling for time. Brother Ju knew that if the shooter was really a darts expert, he could even shoot cherries, let alone apples. So, with this development, there had to be a conspiracy. After thinking for a few seconds, Feng Bujue asked a very constructive question. So, where should I put the apple? On Yang's head, the shooter replied calmly as he blew out a smoke ring. Huh. Feng Bujue glanced at Yang. Is that okay? Of course, Yang gave a firm answer with a straight face. Let me make sure. Feng Bujue said to Yang. If I accidentally throw a dart on your head or face, what will you do? I'll kill you, Yang replied calmly. Okay. Feng Bujue wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and turned to look at the shooter. Please continue, the shooter replied while smoking. During the competition, Yang will stand in front of that wall with the apple on his head. He pointed to the wall on the other side of the bar. And the 2 of us will stay at the bar and take turns throwing darts at the apple. Wait a minute. Feng Bujue very sensitively caught something, and he interrupted to ask, when we throw the darts, will Yang move? The Sagittarius laughed. Haha. You're smart, Dave. He blew out another puff of smoke. Fufu, of course he will move. As long as the apple doesn't fall from the top of his head, he can move however he wants. I'm afraid that's not fair, Feng Bujue said. As long as you 2 cooperate a little, I'll definitely lose, won't I? Ha ha ha. The shooter laughed. Dave, my friend, you think too much. He put a hand on Brother Ju's shoulder and laughed. Why would I cheat? Is it to win your temporary work permit? If I really want that thing, I can just force you to hand it over with a gun. Well, that's true. Feng Bujue thought about it, and it was really the case. Taking a step back, this isn't an official competition. There isn't even an audience. Aside from the wager, do I have any incentive to cheat? The shooter asked again. I don't think so, Feng Bujue replied. So, the shooter stood up and paced around the bar. You don't have to worry about fairness. I can guarantee that in the face of every dart, Yang will do his best to dodge it. No matter who threw the dart. Understood, Feng Bujue said in a low voice. You just want to find an expert who is on par with you, but you're afraid that I'll do it half-heartedly. It only took him a short time to figure out the shooter's intention. So, you propose this wager. He pointed at his temporary work permit. This permit is worthless to you, but to me, it's indispensable. So, you want to use it as a wager and let me do my best. Like I said, you're a smart man. The shooter pointed at Brother Bujue with a cigarette in his hand and smiled. Okay, let's talk about the other rules. Feng Bujue's tone when he said this basically showed that he had accepted the challenge. A total of 21 rounds, the shooter continued. No matter the final score, we have to play to the end. Feng Bujue crossed his arms and rested his chin on his hand. He raised his eyebrows and said, in other words, even if you win the first 10 rounds and win my temporary work permit in the remaining 11 rounds, I'll still have the opportunity to ask you questions. That's right. The shooter added, on the other hand, even if you win the first 12 rounds and eliminate the possibility of me winning, I'll still play all 21 rounds with you. I have no reason to refuse these rules that are beneficial to me, Feng Bujue replied. Very good. The shooter nodded and then explained. In each round, each person will hold 3 darts and take turns throwing them. Whoever hits the apple first will be considered the winner. If no one hits the apple after all 6 darts are thrown, the round will be considered a draw. So what if it's a draw? Feng Bujue asked. A draw is a draw, the shooter said. My wins will not be accumulated, and you can't ask questions. Okay, that's fair, Feng Bujue said. Fufu. That's about it. If there are no more questions, let's begin. When the shooter said this, he took one last puff of his cigarette. Then he extinguished the cigarette and stood up. Okay. Feng Bujue also stood up. As he spoke, he raised his hands, crossed his fingers, and pushed his palms outward. This seemed to be a warm-up. Give me a moment. Seeing that the two had agreed, Yang walked out from the bar and walked into a room in the corner of the bar. 1 minute later, he came out with a basket of apples in his hand. I'm ready. A few seconds later, Yang placed an apple on his bald head and stood calmly in front of the far wall. Do you want to go first? The shooter took 6 darts from the bar and handed 3 to Brother Ju. I can choose to go first and then attack later? Brother Ju wondered. Yes, the shooter said. But this is only the first round. We'll take turns to go first. Then I'll definitely go first, Feng Bujue replied. This was a very simple calculation. First of all, going first would give you an advantage. As long as you hit the first dart, the person who attacked later would not even have a chance to make a move and would lose the game. Secondly, the person who chose to go first in the odd round would have one more chance than the opponent because there were a total of 21 rounds of dart. Then please. The Sagittarius made a please gesture and sat on the side in a relaxed manner, watching from the sidelines. Ha ha ha! Feng Bujue chuckled coldly internally. Son of AB****. He thinks he has some skill, so he underestimates me. Humph. At the very least, I am a man with level C marksmanship. Even in the real world, I can easily throw an apple with a dart. At this moment, Brother Ju was full of confidence. He was at least 80% sure that he would hit the target. Although Yang's ability to move seemed to be a variable, considering that the apple would not fall from the top of his head, it was not a problem. With the apple on top of his head, how much could he move? At most, he could shrink his neck or move a few centimeters to the side. Okay. Watch my first dart. Feng Bujue raised his elbow and threw the dart for a moment. He thought that he had won the game. However, ha! Just as Brother Ju threw the dart, Yang, with the apple on top of his head, shouted and stretched his neck. In a split second, the apple flew up vertically, and Yang's body sank down along with the movement of his neck, causing him to fall flat on his back. 1 second later, Feng Bujue's dart flew between the apple and Yang's head without hitting anything. After the dart flew past, Yang straightened his body and caught the apple on top of his head. Of course, everyone knew that the surface of an apple was uneven and the top of a person's head was not flat. Therefore, when the two surfaces touched, the apple would definitely roll in a certain direction. Normally, the apple would fall to the ground. However, Yang could use his spring-like neck, his strange body movements, and his sharp head movements to stabilize the apple within 2 seconds. Humph, you want to hit the apple on top of my head with this level of skill? After Yang steadied himself, he gave Feng Bujue a look of disdain and said in a rather disdainful tone, Hey! Brother Ju was deeply shocked. He felt that his heart had been greatly damaged. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? This doesn't make sense. This is indeed not science. Yang had an unfathomable expression and said solemnly, This is a skill that has been honed and refined over and over again. You've been focusing on the apple for 30 years. Feng Bujue shouted. Where is the most basic trust between people? Ah. Now you know the profoundness of the darts world, young man. At this time, the archer walked over from the side and looked up at Brother Jew. Why do you suddenly refer to me as a Japanese person? Didn't you call me young man earlier? Feng Bujue could not suppress his urge to complain. By the way, what is this Daiko world, anyway? Is it a forbidden territory that only the two of you know about? Fine. The archer ignored Brother Jew's words and picked up his first dart. I'll let you see the real darts. What's the difference between you and a real darter? Feng Bujue heard another word that sounded like a chunibu. He narrowed his eyes and said, Are you sure you didn't make up this messy setting on the spot? Watch this. The archer shouted and used a set of footwork that old ladies use to dance. He took a step forward and swung his wrist to strike. Swish, swish, swish. At that moment, the small dart seemed to have turned into a nimble poisonous snake, and its surroundings were faintly emitting a copper-colored light. With the sound of the wind, the dart drew an arc in the air and flew towards the apple on top of Yang's head. On the other hand, Yang was not to be outdone. He spun in a circle at high speed, causing the apple to spin. Then, he retracted his body and placed one hand on the ground. The moment the apple started to fall due to gravity, he flipped it back up. And so, the apple flew in an arc, and it was a very high parabola, as if it was drawing a zero in the air. In the end, it still flew towards Yang's head. Bang! 2 seconds later, the dart was embedded in the wall. The apple did not fall to the ground. It turned out that, even though the dart did not hit the apple, the dart had rubbed against the apple's skin. This caused the frequency and angle of the rotation of the apple to change. Therefore, the trajectory of the falling apple changed accordingly. Seeing this, Yang's reaction was lightning fast. He immediately placed both hands on the ground and performed a neat Thomas spin to forcibly shift his body's center of gravity. The next second, after a half a meter away, he successfully caught the apple on top of his head again. However, this time, a strand of cold sweat flowed down his bald head. Heh heh heh. The archer did not show any disappointment when his attack missed. On the contrary, he revealed a smile. Old friend, the current you, facing my boomerang dart, is it so easy for you? Yang responded with a sympathetic look and replied with a straight face, same to you. The only person who can force me to use the Thomas spin to catch fruit is you. These two are King kidding me. The corner of Feng Bujue's mouth twitched, and he roared in his heart, What's with the boomerang dart? Please go back to the set of the king of the net. Don't say Thomas spin to catch fruit. This name is an insult to all the names of killing moves. It's mental pollution, isn't it? Okay, Dave, it's your turn again. After throwing the dart, the shooter sat back on the stool by the bar. You should know how to play this game now, right? Then show us your real skills. Show your mother. Feng Bujue was cursing. I really want to find 18 strong bald men to beat you with folding stools. Although he was depressed, the game had already started. He had to finish it. Therefore, he silently raised his second dart. Chapter 762. Even though Feng Bujue tried his best to keep the game going, there was still a huge gap between their abilities. After the first 10 rounds, Brother Jew's record was 0 wins, 5 draws and 5 losses. In a sense, this was no longer a battle between him and the shooter, but a battle between the shooter and Yang. Feng Bujue looked more like a spectator. He would come up from time to time and then go back down to watch the performance of the two gods. It's your turn to attack again, Dave. At the start of the 11th round, the shooter went to the bar and poured himself a glass of wine. He said to Brother Jew, Are you still going to stick to the straight darts that have average speed and strength? Ha ha. Feng Bujue laughed but did not say anything. He silently stepped forward, raised his hand, aimed and threw the dart. Then he watched as the dart he threw was easily dodged by Yang. What the F*** does this have to do with what I want to do? Brother Ju looked calm on the surface, but in his heart, he was saying, "If I could throw the dart like yours, would I not throw it?" At this point, Feng Bujue basically did not have any expectations of being asked questions. The only hope in his heart was that Brother Yang could take a few more rounds and increase the number of draws. As long as the number of draws reached 12, he would not lose his temporary work permit. Humph! Seeing Feng Bujue miss again, the archer scoffed coldly. "Looks like you still don't plan to play with us seriously." His eyes narrowed. "Do you think the power that I have shown so far is not enough to be your opponent?" "I didn't say that." Feng Bujue narrowed his eyes. "That's enough, you don't have to deny it." The shooter waved his hand to interrupt Brother Ju and looked at Yang Dao. "Old man, it seems like we're being looked down upon. Shouldn't we be a little more serious?" "Yes," Yang replied in a deep voice. "I was thinking the same thing." As he spoke, his bald head swung towards his left and right shoulders, causing the muscles and bones around his neck to make cracking sound. "Just in time. I'm almost done warming up." Hey, was that just a warm-up?" Feng Bujue looked at them, not knowing what to say other than complaining. "Watch carefully. Dave, this is my true strength." At that moment, the archer shouted and stood up from the bar counter. He did a few somersaults in the narrow space of the bar and threw a dart with a flip of his arm. It was an ordinary dart. However, the airflow brought about by the dart had already taken the shape of a long spear. It seemed to be moving like lightning, and its might was terrifying. Humph humph. On the other side, a cold smile appeared on Yang's face. "Then I'll use some of my true abilities as well." Before he could even finish speaking, his clothes had already been ripped apart. He saw that this 2-meter-tall bald man had torn the bartender's uniform into a pile of rags with just a burst of energy. "Ha!" Yang, whose upper body was naked, tightened his strong muscles and muttered to himself. A wave-like airflow instantly swirled around his body and pushed the apple on top of his head into the air. "What?" The archer saw this and was slightly startled. Could this be the legendary apple domain? "That's right," Yang replied with a smile. "Materialize your control over the apple and create a force field that can move the apple freely. No matter what kind of attack it is, it can avoid an absolute domain." While the two of them were talking, the apple and the dart were flying back and forth in the air. They were like two flies, and there was no sign of them stopping. One of them suddenly blurted out a sentence in Japanese without any sense of awkwardness and stated the name of the opponent's skill with a serious expression. The other one nodded and used a set of Chunibu theory to explain the theory behind his own skill. Feng Bujue's current mood could only be described with the word pain in the balls. He shook his head and mumbled softly, "Based on this kind of development, there should be a series of twists and turns in the future." He did not know whether he should be happy for his brother Ju, because he had guessed it right. What a pity. After a few seconds, the archer's expression changed. "Even if you're in Apple's territory, you won't be able to escape my attack." He waved his arm and laughed. 3 more seconds. My dart will hit the target." Just as he said the word, hit, the dart that had already left his hand accelerated again in midair, moving at a speed that was far faster than the apple and at an incredible angle. This is... For the first time in this duel, Yang showed a look of surprise. "The legendary extreme talent? Accept your fate, Yang," the archer said. "In front of my absolute prediction, there will be no exceptions. How can I admit defeat here?" Unexpectedly, Yang's eyes immediately lit up with fighting spirit. Then, he howled like a pig being slaughtered. Accompanied by his howl, the speed of the apple in midair suddenly accelerated, once again exceeding the speed of the dart. Saka. The archer's Japanese became more and more natural. "You have comprehended the extreme talent of thousand tempering." "Humph. How is it, old man?" Yang replied. 3 seconds have passed, and your absolute prediction has been broken by me. Don't be so smug. I haven't lost yet. The archer waved his hands like claws, as if he was remotely controlling the dart from afar. Then let's see if you can hit the apple. Yang also took a firm horse stance, raised his head, and moved the dart swiftly. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. For a time, the bar was filled with the sound of 2 streams of air colliding. This 11th duel of dart against apple turned into a tug of war. However, the result of this duel was actually not that important anymore. This was because when the archer and Yang focused on the dart and the dart in midair, Feng Bujue had already quietly walked behind the bar counter, grabbed the shotgun and temporary work pass, and then quickly and quietly left the bar. It was not until 15 minutes later, when the winner was decided between the archer and Yang, that one person was missing from the bar. Ah, not bad. Feng Bujue, who had left the bar, pedaled lazily on his bicycle, heading toward the address of the 10th recipient. Even though I wasted a lot of time, but I successfully replenished my life points and stamina points, and I got a reliable shooting weapon. The mental pollution was worth it. Chapter 764. 10th Street, Number 9. Like all the previous recipients, it was an ordinary 2-story house with a deserted front yard. There was no mailbox in front of the door. After parking his bicycle, Feng Bujue carried his backpack and held his shotgun. He quickly stepped onto the porch in front of the house. Bang, bang, bang. Open the door! He shouted as he knocked on the door. I don't need to tell you what happened next. Not long after, a fat man wearing slippers came down from the 2nd floor. He opened the door a crack and stood in the shadows. He asked, "Who are you looking for?" The postman. Feng Bujue raised his temporary work ID and waved it in front of the fat man. He then put away the ID and took out an envelope. I'm here to deliver a letter. I won't accept it. The fat man's reaction was the same as the previous 9. Click. Feng Bujue took the opportunity to raise his shotgun and put the muzzle through the crack. He said in a deep voice, "Are you going to accept it or not? What are you going to do?" Although the fat man showed fear, he didn't run away. Do you want the letter or the bullet? You choose. Feng Bujue's tone didn't sound like he was joking at all. When necessary, he could be very ruthless. No, don't kill me. The fat man raised his hands and surrendered. Even if you shoot, I won't accept it unless I give you your command code? Feng Bujue said, picking up where the man left off. Okay. The fat man nodded. TSK. Brother Ju snorted and thought to himself, threatening with force doesn't work. 2 seconds later, he put down the gun and said, "How many digits is your command code?" 11, the fat man answered truthfully. After getting the answer, Feng Bujue turned around and ran to his bicycle. In the next 40 minutes, Brother Ju visited the 11th, 12th, and 13th recipient. The last 3, without exception, were all fatties. Their voices, personalities, reactions, and so on were all the same as the first 10 recipient. Feng Bujue didn't want to waste any more time with these guys. He had already probed them as much as he could, so other than the number of digits in the command code, he didn't ask anything else. At 2:50 p.m., Brother Ju once again came to the abandoned mailbox in the cemetery. At this moment, there was an envelope on the ground next to the mailbox. Although there was no wind, there was still a rock on top of the envelope. He really wrote back. Feng Bujue mumbled to himself as he walked over to pick up the letter. It was an earthen yellow envelope. Holding it in his hand, he could feel that there was only a thin piece of paper inside. Brother Ju carefully tore it open and took out the letter inside. Then, he found something very puzzling. Both sides of the letter were blank. Again? Feng Bujue couldn't help but complain. Invisible ink? The wordless heavenly book? His complaint was the same as when he received the newspaper. As he spoke, He took the letter in front of his eyes and carefully examined it to make sure that there were no traces or scents on the paper. What does this mean? Feng Bujue muttered to himself. He subconsciously held his right elbow with his left hand, and the index and middle fingers of his right hand were slightly together. He traced his forehead and the tip of his nose. This habitual thinking action allowed his mind to work more smoothly. If this piece of paper simply fell next to the mailbox, it might be misunderstood as a discarded piece of paper. But right now, this piece of paper is in an envelope, and it is pressed down by a rock. This setting tells me that this piece of paper is indeed a reply. After thinking for a while, he suddenly had an idea. Could it be? The next second, Brother Ju took out the newspaper from his satchel and flipped to the blank pages, an indirect hint. Thinking of this, he simply sat on the ground, holding the letter in one hand and the newspaper in the other. He muttered, "This reply does indeed have no content, but the no content part can also be a hint." His gaze moved to the newspaper. "It's hinting to me. The answer is in a seemingly blank space." With this in mind, Feng Bujue tore off the first page of the newspaper. The front of the page was the meaningless headline, and the back of the page was the second page with no text, only a picture. The picture on the second page was a picture of a brick wall, and in front of the wall stood a tree. At first glance, it looked like a picture of a landscape, but upon closer inspection, there were bicycle tracks on the ground at the bottom of the picture. Okay, let me take a look. The paper quality of this newspaper is normal, so it's impossible for it to show fire or water. Feng Bujue held the experiment in his hand and pondered. The only thing I can try now is... As he thought about it, his hand reached for the shotgun, but 1 second later, he pulled his hand back. Wait a minute. If the item needed to solve the riddle is the gunpowder in the bullet, then Brother Spectre should have given me the riddle after I got the shotgun. He scratched his chin. In other words, the item needed to make the hint appear was already with me at the time. Then, like a child in a science class, Brother Ju showed great interest. He took out a bunch of props from his pocket and arranged them in a row on the grass. Let's do this one by one. Then, he raised the first prop. In the next 5 minutes, he first tried to read the content of the newspaper through the camera on his phone. Then, he used a pen and a pencil to draw a small area on the paper. Then, he used a coin, a key, and a credit card to scratch a few areas on the newspaper. Unfortunately, all these attempts ended in failure. This is not right either. I have to change my approach. He picked up the salt flask and muttered. This was the last item that he had that could be used to solve the riddle. Thankfully, this last attempt worked. When the white salt was sprinkled on the newspaper, plumes of white smoke rose from the paper, and there was a slight burnt smell in the smoke. This was obviously not the reaction of paper when it came into contact with salt. 1452-7. 66 Tree trunk. A few seconds later, a line of smoky words appeared on the blank page next to the illustration. Ha! Got it. Feng Bujue's smile appeared at the same time as the words on the newspaper appeared. He did not expect that the key to solving the riddle would be the salt flask found on the felt hat bro. After the experiment was successful, the next step was simple. Brother Ju followed the instructions and deciphered the other 12 pages in the middle of the newspaper. In total, he obtained 13 similar messages. If I'm not mistaken, the first 2 numbers are the coordinates. After Feng Bujue memorized all the hints, his expression relaxed. Since it's down to 2 decimal places, it's probably to match the mini-map that I have with me. And the nouns that follow each coordinate undoubtedly have to be combined with the illustration. At this moment, Brother Ju roughly understood the meaning of these hints. Coincidentally, the coordinates on the second page were the ones that were closest to him. Therefore, in order to verify his conjecture, he quickly packed up his things, returned to the bicycle, and headed there. In less than 5 minutes, Feng Bujue arrived at the coordinates of 14.52.7.66 on the minimap. Due to the size of the map, he could not stand on a specific spot. At most, he could only get close to it. He looked around and saw the brick wall in the illustration and the big tree planted in front of the wall. A tree trunk. Feng Bujue parked the bicycle and walked over with the shotgun. He cautiously approached the target step by step, as if the tree would suddenly turn into a monster and attack him. However, the result proved that he was overthinking. The tree in front of him was just a normal tree. There were no flags or events in this location. The only valuable thing there was an Arabic number engraved on the tree trunk, 1. Chapter 765. I see. The moment he saw the number, the pieces of information in Feng Bujue's mind instantly twisted together to form a complete chain of clues. 13 pictures, 13 coordinates, 13 nouns that point to a certain place. Just enough to lead me to the 13 command code. As he said this, he had already turned around and walked towards the bicycle. Because only the phantom postman knows everyone's command codes, so, in every illustration, I can find the tire prints he left behind when he passed by. Brother Ju kicked up the bicycle's support frame and climbed onto the seat. Although the inference itself is valid, I can't rule out the possibility of coincidence or special cases. To be on the safe side, I should follow the order of the newspaper's page and step on every coordinate. He had considered this thoroughly. After all, he had only confirmed one clue so far, so he couldn't just jump to conclusions. He had to go to at least 3 places, find 3 suspected command codes, and match them with the recipients one by one to be completely sure that his inference was correct. To cut the long story short, 20 minutes later, Feng Bujue arrived at the 3rd page of the newspaper, the place where the 2nd picture was recorded. Following the coordinates and the nouns, he found the number 16 at the bottom of a trash can. This was the command code of number 2. Then, without stopping, he went to the location of the 3rd illustration, a farm west of the town. On a fence by the farm, he found 3 painted numbers, 219. After receiving this 3-digit number, he naturally went straight to the residence of the fat man number 3 and knocked on the door of the recipient's room. This time, Brother Ju didn't waste any time. When the person answered the door, he said, "Command code 219, take the letter for me." In the end, number 3 really did take the letter. At this point, Feng Bujue's inference was basically confirmed. What he needed to do next was no longer difficult. He just needed to design the most time-saving and efficient route in his mind, then follow this route to explore the 10 locations where the command codes were recorded, and let the remaining 10 fat men accept the letter. Then, the side mission would be considered completed. Although the final completion time was a little longer than he initially expected, he should be able to finish it before 8 o'clock in the evening. There were still 4 hours before the mission requirement of before midnight, which was more than enough time. At that time, Brother Ju did plan this way. However, his plan changed not long after. In the afternoon, 4:15, Brother Ju, who had explored 5 coordinates according to the established route, suddenly stopped. F***ck. I'm stupid. He stopped in the middle of the road and cursed to himself. Such an obvious pattern. I should have noticed it earlier. He didn't know what he was thinking, but he immediately turned the bicycle around and headed towards the nearest recipient's address. 10 minutes later, Feng Bujue arrived at number 13's port. The command code of this recipient was a 14-digit number, and Brother Ju hadn't checked the coordinates of the code, but he still knocked on the door firmly. "You again." After number 13 opened the door, he stared at Brother Ju through the crack of the door and said, "I told you, without the command code, I won't." "Wait a second," Feng Bujue interrupted him, took out his phone and tapped on it for a while. About 5 seconds later, He handed over the 13th letter with his other hand and quickly said, 302-875-110-659-225. After he finished speaking, the fat man was stunned for 2 seconds, which made Feng Bujue quite nervous. Fortunately, after 2 seconds, number 13 obediently took the letter and said gloomily, "Damn it, humph. Perfect." Feng Bujue smiled. At that moment, he had completely deciphered the pattern of the codes on the 13 fat men. Without checking the coordinates given by the newspaper, he could name all 13 codes. Furthermore, using this pattern, he knew that there was an anomaly among the 13 fat men. Evening, 6:30 p.m. Feng Bujue rode his bicycle to the door of a motel on the western side of town. By then, his side mission, send out all the letters before midnight, had been completed. This was because he didn't go to any of the coordinates given by the newspaper to look for the code. Instead, he ran to all the addresses of the remaining recipients and gave them the command codes of the fat men so that they could accept the letters. And the effect of completing the side quest ahead of time was, when Brother Ju sent out the last letter, he received 3 new quests consecutively. Investigate and solve the reason why Enoch was late. Try to join the Last Supper. Decipher the scenario's worldview before the main mission is completed. These 3 missions were all classified as hidden missions. Of course, for Feng Bujue, this was not a bad thing. In fact, this kind of development was exactly what he wanted. According to the map, this is the only motel in town. If Enoch, Brother Ju deduced that Enoch was the name of the man in the felt hat, is an outsider like me, and he arrived yesterday, there is a high probability that he spent the night here. Brother Ju thought to himself as he walked to the entrance of the motel. But I can't rule out the possibility that he has relatives in town, or that he hooked up with a girl in the bar last night. While he was thinking, he pushed open the door of the motel. Humph! It's open, isn't it? The moment Feng Bujue opened the door, he knew that he had come to the right place. Although Otaku Town was huge, there were only a few buildings that players could enter. It was rare to come across a place that could be entered, so it must be something special. A few seconds later, Feng Bujue walked through a short corridor and came to a counter. Is anyone here? Since there was no bell on the counter, Brother Ju could only rely on his voice to call for help. If there's no one here, I'll help myself. He waited for a moment, and when no one responded, he shouted again. But the result was the same. There was no one here. Very good. Feng Bujue smiled, walked to the counter, lifted the counter, and walked in. The first thing he did was to flip through the thick register on the table and find the name Enoch. There seems to be quite a lot of people staying here. As Brother Ju flipped through the register, he was surprised to find that there were quite a lot of names on the register. According to the register, 70% of the rooms in the motel were occupied. Most of the people staying in the motel are from outside the town. Feng Bujue said thoughtfully, I can try to communicate with them later and see if I can get any information. He quickly memorized some room numbers and the names of the occupants. Then, he turned around and took out the key to room 204 that Enoch had checked in from the key cabinet behind the counter. Humming a tune, he went up to the second floor. Small motels like this usually did not have elevators. Feng Bujue walked up the stairs and walked down a corridor that was covered in red carpet. It was dimly lit, and he soon found room 204. He stood in front of the door and pondered for 2 seconds. Then, he inserted the key, opened the door, quickly raised the shotgun, and aimed at every angle in the room. After confirming that there was no obvious threat in his line of sight, he quickly stepped into the house and imitated the actions and order of the police searching the house in the police movies. He searched the back of the door, under the bed, in the bathroom, and all the other corners and blind spots. Throughout the whole process, he did not speak, and even his footsteps were very low. It was quiet, fast, and accurate. Unfortunately, in a single-player Nightmare Instance dungeon, There weren't many small monsters. His professional clearing process was just a waste of his emotions. After circling the room, Brother Jew went back to the door, closed it, and let out a long sigh. Okay. He put the shotgun on the cabinet next to the door and looked at the empty room. I can officially search now. Chapter 766. Feng Bujue spent half an hour inspecting room 204 in detail. Then, he sat on the bed and fell into deep contemplation. The wardrobe is empty, and there are no coats or pants in the suitcase, only a limited amount of underwear and socks. This means that he didn't plan to stay out too long. Regardless of whether the interview was successful or not, he would have returned home before tomorrow. Brother Jew quickly recalled all the information he had just collected. Although he went to the bar last night, considering that he had an interview early in the morning, he wouldn't have drunk too much or stayed out too late. His complexion before he died can also prove this point. At least in the few seconds before his head was blown off, he looked quite energetic, without any hangover or lack of sleep. He glanced at the bedsheet again. Judging from the hair and smell left on the bed, he did spend the night in room 204. And this morning, he even washed up leisurely and shaved before leaving the house. Thinking of this, Feng Bujue frowned slightly. He rubbed his chin and said, all the signs indicate that Enoch was very calm until he left the hotel room in the morning. He didn't seem to be in a hurry at all. He paused for a moment. Then the question is, after he left the hotel, and before he entered the post office, what happened? At this moment, all the clues he had collected so far flashed in front of Brother Jew's eyes. His mind reacted instinctively, giving him one inference after another. He unfolded each inference one by one, weaving a deductive spider web. Speaking of which, where is his car? A moment later, Feng Bujue touched something at the edge of the spider web. His eyes moved slightly, and he thought, I've been in town for so long, and not only have I not seen any pedestrians, but I haven't even seen a single car. He stood up and paced back and forth in the room. This Enoch brother. He couldn't have walked all the way to this remote town with his suitcase, right? Brother Jew thought as he walked to the door of the room. He planned to visit the other guests in the hotel with the shotgun and ask them what they knew. However, just as he picked up his gun and was about to touch the doorknob, he heard the sound of a key entering the lock. Feng Bujue reacted quickly. He immediately took 3 steps back and raised his gun to aim. Almost at the same time, the door was pushed open. If I were you, I wouldn't waste my time in this hotel. The person outside the door was still calm after seeing Brother Jew with a gun. Mr. Dave. Feng Bujue took a closer look. Standing in the corridor was a balding, slightly plump old black man. The man looked to be in his 60s. He was dressed in a dark green administrator uniform and had a bunch of keys on his waist. Who are you? Feng Bujue pointed his gun at the other party and asked coldly, How do you know my name? I'm the administrator here. You can call me Mr. M. As for your name, I've known it for a long time. I've known you for as long as you can remember. You're my relative? Feng Bujue responded. I know you better than your relatives, Dave, Mr. M replied. I know that you wet your bed when you were in 3rd grade. I know that you're allergic to lettuce. I know that your best childhood playmate died of a drug overdose. I also know the names of all your girlfriends. What's going on, distant relative? Stalker? What nonsense! Although Brother Jew had many guesses in his mind, his own understanding of Dave was limited. Even if the other party was talking nonsense, he had no way of knowing. It seems that you know a lot. Feng Bujue remained calm and threw out a tentative question. Then can you please tell me? Enoch, actually, you don't have to worry about the car. Before Brother Jew finished, Mr. M cut in. You'll understand if you think about it, he said darkly. Your own car counts as entering the small town? Hearing this, Feng Bujue's expression changed slightly. I see. He realized that not only were there no cars or pedestrians in this town, but there were also no tire tracks or footprints. After walking around the town for a day, all he saw were his own footprints and tire tracks. Thank you for your reminder, Mr. M. 2 seconds later, Brother Ju continued, if it's convenient. Can you explain why you already know what I want to ask you before I even say it? Ha ha ha. Mr. M returned a meaningful smile, then ignored Brother Ju's question and said, The Last Supper will begin at 8 o'clock. You have less than an hour to attend the banquet. After that, he turned and walked down the corridor. Wait. Feng Bujue quickly walked forward, wanting to stop him and ask for an explanation. But when he reached the door, there was no one in the corridor. Mr. M left his sight for less than a second, but it was in this second that Brother Ju lost track of him. Because of Mr. M's appearance, Brother Ju changed his original plan of knocking on the door and asking questions to a more direct and faster method. He went straight to the counter on the first floor, took out all the keys in the key cabinet, and opened all the doors in the hotel room one by one. Although he was prepared to raise his gun every time he entered the room, there was no one in the room. Feng Bujue wasted another 10 minutes in the hotel, but he still found nothing. At 7:22 p.m. he walked out of the hotel door and got on his bicycle again. Motherf asterisk cur. He cursed as he pedaled. Telling me the time limit for dinner but not the location. What's the use of that? This was not the only problem that annoyed him. At the moment, he had another worry, and that was his stamina points. 692-4800 might have been enough in a normal scenario, but in a scenario like this where physical strength was measured by physical strength, it was a state where his muscles ached and needed rest. Unfortunately, the situation before him did not allow Feng Bujue to rest. Brother Ju had a feeling that, at this stage of the scenario, he was very close to completing it perfectly. Even though he was not 100% sure, at this point, he could use God mode to explain. Actually, the most important hidden index in this scenario was time, or rather, action efficiency. Arrive at Narson's office before 9 a.m. was a good example. The scenario where Enoch's head was blown up and the punctuality that was emphasized in the post office manual were both hints. The main mission, obtain the approval of the Spectre postman and become the new postman of Ortaku Town, was ambiguous. It was not a clear instruction. The real factor that decided the difficulty of the scenario was time. At the start of the scenario, if the player did not meet Narson before 9 a.m., the difficulty of the scenario would increase, and the content of the side mission would change. The chain reaction would be, the time taken to complete the side mission would increase, and the time taken to complete the side mission would be the benchmark for triggering the hidden mission. If the player completed it 1 hour earlier, they would solve the scenario's worldview before completing the main mission. If the player completed it 3 hours earlier, they would investigate and solve the reason why Enoch was late. If they wanted to try to join the Last Supper, they had to complete it 5 hours earlier. In other words, the difficulty and ending of the scenario were closely related to the player's action efficiency. The faster they completed this step, the easier the next step would be. On the other hand, if they were late one step, they would be late all the time. If they did not correct their mistake as soon as possible, the later part of the scenario would snowball. Even if the player was lucky enough to survive, at most, they would only be able to complete the mission before midnight. Now, Feng Bujue had used his outstanding performance to walk on time, on the easiest and most profitable route to clear the scenario. But there was still a chance that he would fail. 38 minutes, less than 700 stamina points, broken clues. To complete the scenario perfectly, he had to overcome these factors and arrive at the banquet within the time limit. Chapter 767. The night was getting darker. It was 7:28 in the morning and the fog was still thick. The only difference was that the street lamps were all lit up. The damp air caused Feng Bujue's face and hands to go numb from the cold. He had no choice but to increase the speed of his pedaling to maintain the warmth in his body. Although he did not know where the Last Supper was, he thought of a place to go. It was the post office on the north side of the town square. Firstly, he could report to Nelson there. Secondly, Nelson was the only NPC who could communicate with him normally and provide him with some help. He could not go back to Sagittarius and Yang, and it was too late to write a letter to the phantom postman. As for Mr. M and the woman with the ethereal voice, they were both elusive. He could not find them. Thirdly, there were not many roads in the town. Unless he deliberately took a detour, there was only one route from the hotel to the post office. Therefore, Enoch must have taken this route this morning. If he followed the same route, he might be able to find out what happened to him. The visibility is getting lower and lower at night. Brother Ju continued to move forward with the help of the street lamp. I suddenly feel that the empty streets are not so bad. At least I don't have to worry about bumping into something. F***ck. There were many things that could not be repeated. As the saying goes, whatever you say will happen. Just as Feng Bujue was sighing, a rectangular shadow suddenly appeared in the fog before him. It was standing in the middle of the road. In the next second, the front of the bicycle collided with the object with a loud clang. Brother Ju flew out of his seat. What the F***ck? When they flew through the air, Feng Bujue even dragged out a curse. His voice was filled with frustration. Before he could finish cursing, he fell to the ground. It was a heavy fall. Brother Ju was stunned for a full 30 seconds after he landed on the ground. He roughly checked his body. His right arm was fractured, his ribs were cracked, and there were contusions and bruises all over his body. The only thing he could be thankful for was the fact that the road was mostly made of mud and there were no rocks on the road. If he had fallen on a gravel road or a concrete road, his injuries would have been worse. He might not even be able to get up. Tui! Feng Bujue spat out a mouthful of blood, his lips were broken. He sat up and looked back. He quickly recognized the object that he had hit. It was a hot dog stand. It's quite dangerous to stop in the middle of the road. Feng Bujue could not help but shout at the stand. Brother Ju did not know if it was the system's arrangement or a pure coincidence. He had been running back and forth in the town today, but he had not passed by this place. If he had passed by here during the day, he would not have hit. The visibility at that time was much better, and he was not as fast as he was now. Wait a minute. This doesn't look like a cart. After a few seconds, Feng Bujue could see more clearly. He noticed that the hot dog stand did not have wheels at the bottom. Instead, it had 4 metal brackets inserted into the ground. No wonder. I flew so far, but the stand didn't even shake. So it's fixed to the ground. Due to time constraints and limited resources, Feng Bujue only sat on the ground for a minute before he stood up again. His pain tolerance was already very high. This level of injury was not enough to hinder his movement. After he got up, he used his left hand to carry his satchel again. He picked up the shotgun that he had dropped not far away and walked towards the hot dog stand. The stand had bread, sausages, and all kinds of seasonings and sauces needed to make hot dogs. However, there was no stand owner. Feng Bujue did not hesitate. He placed the shotgun on the table and used his left hand to grab the bread and sausages and stuff them into his mouth. After he stuffed a lump of food into his mouth, he still used his left hand to pick up the mustard, ketchup, and sweet and spicy sauce bottles and poured a little of each into his mouth. His way of eating was not so much intrepid. It was more disgusting. Of course, his tolerance for disgusting things was obvious to all. Examples like spoiled sandwiches and feces swamps will not be repeated here. After eating 2 hot dogs, Brother Ju glanced at his status bar and grumbled with dissatisfaction. TSK? So little life points have been recovered. After the fall, his life points had dropped below 30%. Even after eating the hot dog, his life points only returned to 33%. This was definitely a loss. However, the hot dog had helped him recover almost 500 stamina points, so the fall was not for nothing. What is this? Just as Brother Jew was about to take the shotgun and leave, he accidentally caught a glimpse of something stuck at the edge of the hot dog stand. After picking up the item, he immediately let out a hollow laugh. Item name: Enoch's Wisdom Tooth. Item type: plot. Item quality: trash. Function: unknown. Can be taken out of the scenario. No remark. The owner of this tooth was an extremely stingy person. One morning, he added too much mustard when he was eating a hot dog, and he lost his tooth because of the spiciness. He immediately asked the hot dog stand owner to compensate for his loss, but he was rejected and ridiculed by the stand owner. In a fit of anger, he silently stole a bottle of salt from the stand. What kind of idiot is this? Brother Jew cursed after reading the item description. At the same time, the system audio appeared in his ears. Hidden quest completed. Fong Bujue opened the quest tab, and the quest to investigate and solve the reason why Enoch was late was ticked off just like that. Hey! Brother Jew's lips twitched, and he complained to himself, how can this be? The reason he was late was because he was an idiot? Even though he complained, he knew the reason Enoch was late was because he had gotten into an argument with the hot dog stand owner after losing his tooth. Oh well, no matter what, the quest is completed, Fong Bujue said as he tossed the tooth away and walked around the hot dog stand. If the other two quests are as easy as this, then it'll be so easy. Obviously, he was overthinking things. This hidden quest was obviously the easiest of the three. He only needed to find the related item, read the remark, and understand the meaning of the remark to complete the quest. But the next two quests would not be so easy. After leaving the hot dog stand, it took another 15 minutes for Fong Bujue, who was gasping for air, to reach the entrance of the post office. By then, it was already 7:46 a.m., and there were only 14 minutes left until 8 a.m. Because the front wheel of the bicycle was out of shape, Brother Jew had to abandon the bike and run all the way here. It was not easy for him. Aside from his fractured right hand, he had to bear the pain from his ribs and the swelling all over his body while running. He also had to carry a heavy shotgun in his left hand. To be able to get there in 15 minutes was already very fast. There's not much time left. Brother Jew looked at his watch as he entered the post office. I hope the Last Supper is not far from here. He rushed up to the second floor and went straight to the director's office. Knock, knock, knock. At 7:47 a.m., Brother Jew knocked on the door for the second time today. Please come in, Director Nelson responded immediately. Before he finished, Fong Bujue pushed the door open and went straight to the director's desk. Director, I've delivered all the letters. I know, Nelson replied. I'm very satisfied with your performance. I'd like to ask you a question. Fong Bujue did not respond to the director's praise. Instead, he quickly asked, Do you know where the Last Supper is held? At this point, he did not have the time to beat around the bush with this NPC. He just asked whatever he wanted to ask. After all, if the NPC knew the answer, he would definitely understand the question. That. Nelson's expression and tone did not change much. What's wrong? Do you want to join? Yes, Fong Bujue replied in a very confident tone. If that's the case, Nelson said as he stood up from his chair. Then come with us. Suddenly, someone took over Nelson's words and said the second half of his sentence. Fong Bujue heard this and turned around. He saw that there was an extra person at the door of the office. It was a woman in a white dress. She had long hair and her face was blurry. Her voice was very unique. Even if one listened to it from a close distance, it gave off a distant and ethereal feeling. Chapter 768. The woman's words were like a curse. Before she finished her sentence, the space around her began to distort and gradually expand for a moment. Feng Bujue's vision was like paint on a palette. Only the woman and Narsen's figures remained clear. Looks like I came to the right place. Faced with this sudden change, Brother Bujue did not panic at all. He just stood there with his gun and watched. Just like that, a minute passed. The distorted space stopped spreading and stabilized again. At this time, Narsen's office had disappeared and was replaced by a spacious and magnificent hall. The four walls of the hall were pure white. The walls were carved neatly and there were large oil paintings and curtains hanging in the empty spaces. The marble floor was hard and smooth. On the 5-meter-high ceiling, there was a huge crystal chandelier. Mr. Dave. Narsen's voice soon sounded again. Welcome to the Last Supper. As he spoke, he raised his arm and gestured to the side of the hall. There was a long table covered with a white tablecloth and filled with food. On one side of the long table, there were 13 chairs. At this moment, 13 people were sitting on the 13 chairs. What's going on? Under the light, Feng Bujue finally saw the faces of the 13 fat men. What are you? There were two reasons why he asked this question. First, the 13 fat men looked exactly the same. Second, the faces of these fat men were the fat version of Dave. You should know what they are. The mysterious woman replied. I don't know. Feng Bujue looked at her and replied loudly. No, you know. Narsen on the other side said again. Ha! Feng Bujue sneered and pointed the gun at the mysterious woman. You! He then pointed at Narsen. And you? Mr. Director. I don't care what you think, but I can clearly say that I am very confused by what is happening in front of me. If you too know, I hope you can answer my doubts. That's impossible, Nelson replied in a serious and firm tone. Only you can answer all of this. What we can tell you only exists in the level of nothingness. Once you've seen through reality, you'll naturally understand the meaning of nothingness. Then how can I see through the truth you speak of? Feng Bujue asked. Very simple, open your eyes. At this moment, another voice suddenly came from the corner of the hall, answering his question. Brother Ju turned to the source of the voice and saw Mr. M in the direction of the voice. You're here too? Feng Bujue squinted his eyes and said, according to the situation. Are the two people in the bar also? Yes, we're here too, the Sagittarius interrupted Brother Ju and appeared in the hall with Yang Yi. The way these guys appeared was like teleportation. Brother Ju only needed to turn his face slightly, and they appeared in his blind spot. Okay. Let me think about it. Feng Bujue shrugged. If the lady is not wrong, then the few of you. As he spoke, he glanced at the dining table. And the 13 of them, they are all derivatives on the level of nothingness? Yes and no, the mysterious woman replied. Your question can't be answered with a simple yes or no, Nelson said. In fact, we can't answer you, Mr. M said. There is only one person who knows all the answers. Yang Yi said. That is yourself. The Sagittarius pointed at Brother Ju. The 5 of them spoke together, but Brother Ju still didn't get a clear answer to his question. Okay, I've had enough. Feng Bujue put down the gun and showed an impatient expression. Is there anyone here who can speak human language? Do you dare to say something less ambiguous, or give me some substantial help? The only person who can help you. At this moment, another voice sounded. Only you. This voice was exactly the same as Dave's own voice. Feng Bujue turned his head after hearing the voice and saw another Dave. That Dave was wearing a formal postman uniform and carrying a satchel. His face was very pale, but his eyes were bright. Ghost postman. Feng Bujue looked at him for 2 seconds and asked in a deep voice. Yes, the ghost postman replied. Of course. You can also call me Dave. Ha ha. Fong Bujua laughed twice and then asked, "Can you help me, Dave?" "No, because you broke my bike," Dave replied. "I broke my bike," Fong Bujua continued. "Yes, it's my bike," Dave emphasized again. F***ck. Brother Ju couldn't refute this absurd answer, so he could only say F***ck, Mr. Dave. Nelson also interrupted at this time. "You should have read the work manual. Break the bike at your own risk." "So that's what it means," Fong Bujua muttered. He immediately understood. Breaking the bike was a flag. If he didn't trigger it, he could get help from the ghost postman. Unfortunately, it was too late to know now. Then, "What should I do now?" Fong Bujua said. "What do I need to do to see the truth?" The next second, the 6 people around him replied in unison, "Open your eyes." Fine, I'll open them." Fong Bujua shook his head and smiled bitterly. He did know a way to open his eyes, and the method wasn't complicated. However, the last time he used it, the mysterious woman suddenly appeared and told him this method would bring irreversible effects. Everyone. Fong Bujua took out the Nokia 3310 from his pocket, held it in his left hand and raised it high. "I'll be back soon." After that, he knelt on one knee and waved his arm toward the ground. The bottom half of the phone was like a protruding knife handle, and he slammed it heavily on the marble floor. 2 seconds later, with a loud bang, the marble floor cracked. Almost at the same time, an indescribable, intense pain exploded in Brother Ju's head. Before the pain could fully spread, Fong Bujua's vision turned black, and he lost the perception of his body. Chapter 769. December 25, 2102. Maine, a certain small town. Early in the morning, a 9-year-old boy woke up from his dream and stretched his body. He rubbed his eyes and looked at the alarm clock beside his bed. He then jumped out of bed and ran downstairs in his pajamas. "Wow!" A minute later, the little boy's cheerful shout echoed in the living room. "Mom, Mom!" A few minutes later, he cheerfully ran upstairs and ran into his mother's room. He jumped on the bed and excitedly said, "Look, what did Santa Claus give me?" The mother on the bed had a smile on her face as she replied sleepily, "Haha. Looks like you're a postman now, my little candy." The little boy grinned and adjusted the postman hat on his head before saluting his mother. "I am willing to serve you." The mother reached out and pinched the child's cheek. "Well, Mr. Postman, quickly go back to your room and put on your clothes. Be careful not to catch a cold." "Yes, Ma am," the little boy answered loudly and skipped out. Looking at the back of the child leaving, a warm smile appeared on the mother's face. But a few seconds later, she seemed to remember something and her expression suddenly became a bit gloomy. Her line of sight instinctively turned to the bedside table. There was a picture frame on the table. The picture in the frame wasn't too old. In the picture was a family of 3. A handsome father, a beautiful mother, and a cute little boy. "Mom, when is Dad coming home?" 2 years ago at Christmas, the little boy asked his mother. But his mother only hugged him and wept, unable to say a single word. On Christmas Eve that year, after the little boy's father got off work from the post office, he rode his bicycle and directly rushed to the shopping center to buy a toy for his child. But on the way back, car accident took his life. From then on, only the mother and son were left in the family. They depended on each other for survival. "Put on your hat," yes, just like that. At 8:30 in the morning, after confirming that her son was properly dressed, the mother took the little boy's hand and left the house with him. "Hi, Mr. Marvin, good morning." "Merry Christmas, Mrs. Dave." "Hey, look, whose little postman is this?" Their neighbors were an elderly black couple who would greet each other whenever they saw each other. "Hello, Mr. Field." "Oh, hello, Mrs. Dave." Another neighbor, Field, was a fat man. Everyone in the neighborhood knew that he was a single otaku. Usually, people would only see him when he went out to take out the garbage. Mom, why does Mr. Ford always look so listless? Little Dave looked up and asked his mother after they walked out of the street. Because he stays in a place where there's no sunlight. He eats junk food and doesn't do anything serious, his mother replied. Doesn't he have to work? Little Dave asked curiously. Mr. Ford inherited a large sum of money from a distant relative, so he doesn't have to work, replied the mother. Oh, he's a lucky man, Mum, said little Dave. Yes, he's very lucky. His mother muttered and then stopped walking. After pondering for a few seconds, she squatted down so that her eyes were at the same level as her son's. With a stern expression, she said, Listen, Dave. You have to be like your father. Be a hard-working person. Don't envy people like Mr. Ford. You have to understand. Not everyone is so lucky. Yes, I will, Mom. Little Dave nodded and replied with a half-understanding tone. At 9 in the morning, they arrived at the town's park. Many adults were already sitting on the benches next to the children's playground. Some stalls selling snacks, drinks, and toys had also been set up. Little Dave quickly joined the other children and went to play on the side. Mrs. Dave sat on the bench and chatted with the other housewives. Half an hour later, an old man walked to her side and greeted her. Hi, Wendy, long time no see. Oh, hello, Chief Nelson. I was over there and saw you, so I came to say hello. Merry Christmas, Wendy. Merry Christmas, Mr. Nelson. By the way, how's your wife these days? Not bad. She's at home preparing for a party with the children, so I can only bring my granddaughter to the park to play. Haha, I thought you liked children. Yes, I like them, but I can't do anything about them. He shrugged. A few seconds later, he seemed to have seen something. Is that a street performance? Oh yes. Mrs. Dave followed the man's gaze and saw the two performers in the distance. That is Sagittarius and Yang. They are volunteers in the community. They often perform at the park and the old folks' home. The children love them very much. Oh, Nelson seemed to be interested. Then I have to go and see it. They soon came to the side of a small truck and stood behind a group of naughty children with the other parents. The children in the front row were obviously looking forward to the performance. When Sagittarius and Yang set up the stage, the children had already gathered around and sat down with their arms around their knees. Nelson's granddaughter and little Dave were among them. Okay, children, the performance is about to begin. After they were ready, the two main actors jumped onto the simple stage next to the truck. One of them was a bearded man dressed as a Western cowboy, and the other was a big bald man in a shirt and a vest. Children, today we are going to perform the extremely thrilling, breathtaking, shooting apples with darts. Although it didn't sound like a very interesting performance, it was enough to entertain little Penyu. The children happily clapped and laughed. Gurgle, gurgle. Gurgle, gurgle, the sound of flowing liquid rang in Feng Bujue's ears again. At the same time, the memory fragments from earlier also drilled into his mind. Warning, Tester 8775 is waking up. Warning, the tester's brain is experiencing an impulse reaction. The source is unknown. Please adjust immediately. The robotic voice sounded again. That hurts. This time, Brother Ju gritted his teeth and opened his eyes. TSK. I still can't talk. Oh well. As long as I can see and think. As he thought, he moved his eyeballs and tried to observe his surroundings as much as possible. I see. I'm also soaked in liquid. He quickly realized that he was also wearing a light-colored bodysuit and floating in a glass container filled with liquid. His condition was the same as the last time he opened his eyes and saw Enoch, if he was called Enoch in this world. My nasal cavity, lungs, and ears are all filled with this unknown substance, but there is no obvious discomfort or suffocation. The moment I opened my eyes, my eyeballs felt a little sore, but I got used to it after a few seconds. It's easier than opening my eyes in water. Feng Bujue's eyes moved quickly as his mind raced. No matter what this liquid is, it's definitely not a technological product that existed in this universe in 2002. Could it be a setting of the Matrix? He quickly dismissed the idea. No, the calluses on my hands are still there. A body that soaks in a tank for years won't have this kind of thing. Warning, the tester's brainwaves are overclocked. The test data exceeds the normal value. The forced termination procedure will be initiated in 20 seconds. What kind of test is this? Mental state? Brain function? Feng Bujue listened to the system voice and speculated about his own situation. Anton, you asterisk shoal. Why is number 8775 awake again? Sir, Anton went to the toilet. WTF. He said he ate something unclean for lunch. Okay, you don't have to explain for him. Go to the control panel and deal with this. As for Anton, I'll deal with him later. Yes, sir. The two people conversing outside the liquid container were the same two people from last time. Judging from their conversation, they should be the workers in charge of this test, and they had a superior and subordinate relationship. Phew. Buddy, you sure know how to give me trouble. A few seconds later, a blurry shadow appeared before the container that Feng Bujue was in. He mumbled to himself in a low voice, "You've almost reached the test value, but you still keep waking up." He groaned and then let out a chilling laugh. Fine, I'll help you. I'll add some stuff for you. Please hurry up and pass this test. Don't give me any more trouble. When he heard that, Feng Bujue really wanted to jump out from the container and hug the NPC. Even though he did not fully understand the meaning behind the man's words, he understood. This NPC, whose name and appearance were unknown, was the man who could help him see through the truth. Those who existed in the nothingness could only give him the answer of nothingness. Those who existed in reality could give him the truth. Increasing the concentration of the solution, adding the special solvent. The forced termination procedure has been deactivated. Preparing the emergency pulse. Counting down in 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The moment he was hit by the pulse, Feng Bujue heard a familiar sound. He pondered for a moment, and suddenly realized that this sound was similar to the sound of the ghost postman's bicycle. At the same time, another wave of memory fragments flashed before his eyes. Ah! Brother Ju spat out a mouthful of blood on the marble floor. When his consciousness returned to the magnificent hall, he was still in the same position where he smashed the phone to the ground. Time did not seem to have flowed at all. The 6 people around Feng Bujue once again asked the same question in unison. Have you found the answer? Brother Ju's lips curled into a cold smile. He slowly stood up and walked to the long table at the far end of the hall. I think it's about time for dinner. Chapter 770. It wasn't until just now that I figured out one thing. Feng Bujue slowly walked toward the long table. Everyone. He looked at the 13 fat men sitting side by side at the table. The envelope that you would rather die than accept contains an invitation, right? At this time, the 13 people looked at Brother Ju with a rather helpless and fearful look. They did not say a word. I can completely understand you. Feng Bujue walked to the table and stood still with a smile on his face. Put yourself in my shoes. If I were you, I would also refuse. After saying this, he paused for a few seconds. Then, he spread his arms and made a please gesture as if he was the host of this banquet. But since you're already here, why don't you enjoy your last meal? Hearing this, the fat men looked at each other. Soon, they all showed a sad look, picked up the cutlery, and began to eat. Hidden mission completed. At this moment, the system voice sounded. Feng Bujue glanced at the mission panel and confirmed that the task of trying to participate in the Last Supper had been ticked. Ha! Brother Ju laughed. That's right. Eat slowly and go on your way. It seems that you have seen through the truth, Mr. M said. Humph. I'm ashamed. This time, I didn't see through the whole truth. Feng Bujue said, I also relied on the help of someone to know everything that happened here. As he spoke, he turned around and faced the 6 NPCs behind him. And I know your identities. When he said this, his gaze swept across the faces of the 6 people. However, the NPCs did not react. They just stood there silently, as if waiting for him to continue. First of all, you. 2 seconds later, Feng Bujue's gaze moved to the mysterious woman. You are Dave's survival instinct. It's reasonable for you to appear in the image of his mother. Because in the depths of a person's heart, the one who makes him feel the most trustworthy and safe is usually his parents. At this point, Brother Ju had already used the third person to address Dave. It was clear that he no longer cared about the form and content of his word. The instructions you gave me were all based on the 2 points of survival and safety. So, when I first came to this town, you told me to leave. When I lost the means to leave, you told me clearly that if I stayed in town, I would either become a postman or... He turned his head and glanced at the fat men behind him. Become them. After saying this in one breath, Brother Ju walked in front of Narsen and said, And you, Chief Narsen, you, without a doubt, the symbol of authority and rules in Dave's heart. Most people have an image of you in their minds. When we are lazy, you will spur us on. When we are tempted, you will warn us. You are like a strict teacher who abides by the rules. You ask us to be punctual, firm, thrifty, and honest. He paused and said, Now it seems everything printed in the workbook is true. The ghost postman does not need the help and sympathy of others. Everything he does is voluntary. Obviously, he is your proudest student. He looked directly into Narsen's eyes. Different from survival instinct, your task is not to consider my safety, but to urge me to work hard, to make me become. Feng Bujue stopped halfway through the sentence. He took a few steps to the front of the ghost postman. Like this. I think. At this moment, the ghost postman, or rather the other Dave, looked at Brother Ju with a kind of joy in his eyes. You will soon become me. Yes, you. Brother Ju nodded with a smile. You represent hard work, nobility, giving silently, no regrets, and so on. You are the self-image that Dave envisioned the most in his mind, and you are the target of my test this time. He paced back and forth. The various qualities that you have shown before have indeed explained this very well. He shrugged and continued. People's ideal self is like this. They can't be seen, can't be chased, and can't be held back. Even if it is close at hand, it is still unreachable. Before he finished, Feng Bujue had already walked to the front of the Sagittarius and Yang. As for the 2 of you, he tilted his head and reached out to touch the back of his neck. Haha, it is unrealistic fantasy and adventurous spirit, isn't it? You can also call it the ability to fantasize, Yang said expressionlessly. The Sagittarius added, or a self-awareness and mental state that goes beyond common sense. I say, the 2 of you. Feng Bujue glared at them with his dead fish eyes and replied, I have purposely used the term chunibyu to make it more tactful. Can the 2 of you please not push your luck? Hey, don't forget, we are a part of you, the Sagittarius replied. Yang added, also, you should have noticed your chunibyu mentality has 2 forms, one is the cold type, the other is the flamboyant type. It is Dave's chunibyu mentality that has 2. Sigh. Forget it. Feng Bujue wanted to correct them, but he thought it was none of his business. So, he waved his hand and ended the conversation with the 2 bodyguard gods. He came to the last person. Let's talk about you. Mr. M. Feng Bujue looked at the slightly plump black man and said in a deep voice, You appeared as Mr. Marvin, Dave's neighbor when he was young, but you didn't directly use the name Marvin. The reason is, you wanted to use the name Mr. M. to give me a hint. He walked around the man and said, After we met, you listed a lot of things about Dave and said, I have known you since you could remember. Therefore, your identity is on the verge of being revealed. Memory. Exactly, Mr. M replied approvingly. Only your identity was something I had already guessed before opening my eyes for the second time. Feng Bujue didn't care much about the man's praise and continued, Your appearance was very important. The concept of concrete memory made me suddenly enlightened, and I immediately made a lot of new inferences. Brother Ju stopped and suddenly raised his phone. The phone book on this phone and the hotel's register. There are 4 names exactly the same. At first, I thought it was just a coincidence. After all, English names have a high repetition rate. But after seeing you, I thought for a bit and understood. He tapped his temple twice with his left index finger. The whole town of Otaku is the product of Dave's consciousness projection. The names on the hotel's register were all people he knew. As for the numbers in the phone book, they were all familiar numbers that he could memorize. In short, everything in the town is a memory fragment. At this point, he suddenly thought of something and added, Oh, right, Enoch is also one of them. He smiled. Of course, Enoch shouldn't be Dave's friend. He's just someone Dave met when he came to take the test. Since Enoch's test pod happened to be next to Dave's brain also projected this relatively new impression. Clap, 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 clap. When Brother Ju finished his narration, the 6 people began to applaud, and all of them had smiles on their faces. Congratulations. Very good. You didn't let me down. Well done. That's pretty good, kid. Well done. Their praises were very sincere, but there was an indescribable sense of strangeness. Perhaps it was because all of their personalities were flawed. After all, these 6 people were just a part of a person's consciousness, and they didn't have a complete personality. So, when the applause stopped, Feng Bujue turned again and walked to the long table. Next, it's time to get down to business. The 13 fat men's reactions were surprisingly similar. They all started to tremble, and the food in their hands dropped. Perfunctory, undisciplined, despicable, hypocritical, outwardly strong but inwardly weak, extravagant, lazy, unmotivated. Brother Ju walked from one end of the long table to the other, and he said coldly, Even I feel ashamed because you are the mainstream consciousness of human beings. He scratched his head and made a helpless expression. If a person's consciousness is visualized into a small town, the majority of the residents will be you, a group of otaku. It is undeniable. As long as the conditions allow, most people are more willing to sit back and enjoy the fruits of others' labor instead of being pioneers or strivers. He raised his arm and gestured to the side behind him. Thankfully, they still exist in people's hearts. As he spoke, Feng Bujue had already reached the end of the long table. Okay, everyone, it's time to go. His words were like an order that could not be disobeyed. Just as he finished, the 13 fat Dave quickly and neatly picked up their own table knives and slit their own throat. Both of them died in the same way, face down on the table. Bright red blood dyed the white tablecloth red, and it quickly flowed and dripped onto the marble floor, creating a crackling sound. Humph! Feng Bujue looked at the dead bodies on the table and scoffed. Then he turned back to look at the other side of the hall, but he realized that the 6 NPCs who stood in the distance had all disappeared. After waiting for 10 seconds, Feng Bujue suddenly opened his mouth to say, This still doesn't count as solving the worldview? At this time, he was the only living person left in the hall, but his tone did not sound like he was talking to himself. Chapter 771. After saying this, Feng Bujue waited for another 10 seconds as if he was waiting for someone to respond to him. But the only response he got was silence. Oh! Brother Ju laughed awkwardly, walked quickly to the table, and knocked on the table. Hey! Are you done playing dead? How long are you going to lie on the table? Hee hee hee. The next second there was a burst of creepy laughter. You got me. Along with the laughter, one of the 13 corpses suddenly moved. 2 seconds later, the dead fatty sat up straight, raised his hand, and tore off his head. Of course, what he tore off was not his real head, but a full head cover. Fong Bujua looked at Woody, whose face was covered in blood, and said, "With your skills, you can participate in face_off, right? If the program allows me to hollow out an adult who weighs close to 400 pounds and turn him into a jacket, I'll consider it." Woody Allen laughed as he uttered a scary line. "Do you want me to wait for you for a few minutes? After you take off this coat." Fong Bujua raised his hands and made a quotation mark gesture. "Let's talk." "No need, I'm fine like this," Woody replied. "It's quite warm." "Okay." Fong Bujua did not want to continue this topic. "Then tell me, why haven't I cracked the worldview?" "Of course it's because there are still a few key details that you haven't mentioned," Woody replied. "In any case, why don't you explain the rules of the command code to the system and let it hear it? Isn't it just the power of 13? Brother Ju squinted his eyes and said, "The clue is hidden in their address. The street number represents the power, and the house number represents the mantissa. Number 3 of the First Avenue is 13 to the first power, 13. After removing the mantissa of 3, you will get the command code 1. Number 9 of the Second Avenue is 13 to the second power, 169. After removing the mantissa of 9, you will get the command code 16. So on and so forth, you will get all the command codes." He tilted his head and glanced at Woody. "And among all the 13 recipients there is an anomaly. His address is obviously problematic. Everyone else's apartment numbers were 1, 3, 7, and 9. Only he lived in number 10. But his command code still conforms to the above rules." Heh. "You're right. I've already killed the 4th recipient and changed the recipient's address," Wu Di said with a smile. "Are you trying to make things difficult for me?" Fong Bujua asked. "Yes," Woody admitted as if nothing had happened. "I think the pattern of this puzzle is too simple, so I created an abnormal mantissa to disrupt your thinking. Then I have to congratulate you for succeeding," Brother Ju said unhappily. Heh. "Your performance was not bad," Woody said. "After searching through half of the command code, you solved the pattern. Does this count as no difficulty?" "You created some difficulty and then praised me." Fong Bujua's mouth twitched. "Yes." Woody admitted it again. "By the way, I chose the 4th person for a reason, because the mission is called The Last Supper?" Brother Ju interrupted him before he could finish. Heh. "You saw through this too?" Woody's smile deepened. His smile was already very wretched, and now that his face was covered in blood, he looked like a psychopathic murderer. "It's not that hard to figure out," Fong Bujua replied. "I heard you mention Judas's bag of gold before, and I feel like you're quite familiar with him. In Da Vinci's painting of The Last Supper, Judas sat forth from the left, so very good. Your thinking is fast, almost on par with Gu Chen's." Woody laughed. "Wait, you know the section chief of the 9th section?" Fong Bujua heard the name Gu Chen and asked loudly. "It's a long story," Woody replied. "We'll talk about this later." As he spoke, he calmly picked up the bloody food on the table and started eating. "The system hasn't notified us yet. Quick, say something else." Then there's only the test left." Fong Bujua rubbed his chin and said. "When you opened your eyes for the second time, didn't a staff member add a memory unlock solution to you?" Woody said as he chewed the shit-like substance in his mouth. "Just read the setting." "Oh, so that's the only thing missing," Fong Bujua continued in a relaxed tone. "It's about, in the year 2122 of this universe, the Earth's population has seriously exceeded the limit of what the planet can bear. Faced with this situation, the governments around the world started a Population Right to Survival Act while promoting family planning. As long as you're 16 years old, you have to participate in a Right to Survival test every year until you retire. The content of the test is, under the premise of temporarily losing long-term memory, you have to enter the world of your consciousness projection and obtain the approval of your excellent collective consciousness. In Dave's case, it's the Phantom Postman. If you fail the test, you'll be labeled as someone who has the tendency to waste society's resources. These people will either pay a high population burden tax and wait for next year's test, or they'll have their right to survival taken away and be executed. At this point, Feng Bujue changed his tone. By the way, I have to mention, at the start of the scenario, Dave had 3 $2 bills, 4 $5 bills, 3 $20 bills, and 7 quarters on him. That's exactly 8,775 cents. Now that I think about it, this is no doubt a hint about consciousness projection. World building has been solved. Player Feng Bujue obtained 2,000 skill points as a reward. Hidden quest completed. Finally, after Brother Ju finished explaining all this, the system announcement came. Finally, it's done. Brother Ju mumbled. Wait a minute. Half a second later, he felt something was wrong. Why hasn't the main quest been completed yet? Because I've changed the main quest, Woody replied instantly. Feng Bujue heard that and quickly glanced at the quest tab. The original main quest, obtain the approval of the Phantom Postman and become the new postman of Ortaku Town. It had become, obtain Woody's approval and leave the scenario. Woody used the blood-stained napkin to wipe his bloody mouth. He smiled and said, "Don't panic. I just want to talk to you about something. Come, sit down and we'll talk." Chapter 772. The scenario has been completed. Calculating reward. Obtained EXP 120,000. Game coins 100,000. Obtained equipment none. Missions completed 1. Completed special and hidden missions 4. Solved worldview survival test. Time of terror points increase 0. Highest terror points 0%. Average terror points 0%. Your terror rating is embodiment of valor. Extra reward obtained. Please select later. Obtained skill points 2,681. Additional bonus from skill points EXP 26810. Game coins 100,000. Scenario cleared reward. Puzzle card X2. Side quest reward. The sealed one's right foot. Hidden quest reward. The sealed one's left foot, the sealed one's right wrist, the sealed one's left wrist. Calculation complete. Please continue. After ending his conversation with Woody, Feng Bujue returned to the login lobby. At the same time, the reward for clearing the scenario was listed one by one on screen. The man told me these things. There has to be some kind of conspiracy. Brother Ju mumbled to himself as he browsed through the content on screen. Obviously, before Feng Bujue left the scenario, Woody had given him some information, and it was quite important information. No matter what his purpose is. Brother Ju stared at the calculation screen for about 5 seconds before turning to walk into the storage room. He was still mumbling to himself, since I already know about it, I have to be prepared. As he spoke, he walked through the elevator door and hurried to the glass column where he could claim his reward. Please select your extra reward. 1. A random piece of equipment corresponding to your level. 2. 50,000 game coins. 3. 19200,000 EXP. The familiar system announcement came again, and Feng Bujue claimed the EXP without hesitation. He was there to level up, and before he was transported back, Woody had even reminded him to claim the EXP. Therefore, Brother Jew did as he was told. You have reached level 49. Maximum stamina points has increased. Current stamina points, 49004900. After claiming 40% of the EXP, Brother Jew reached level 49. He was only one level away from the maximum level. Considering the fact that Thriller Paradise had removed the level ranking in version 1.10, there was no such thing as estimating EXP gain speed through ranking anymore, so Brother Jew could level up as fast as he wanted. If he was fast enough, he would be able to level up that last level by tomorrow morning. Of course, he was not in such a hurry. After all, Woody had given him 3 days, which was 72 hours. It started at 8 o'clock that morning, and it would end around 8 o'clock in the morning on August 7. Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Note, End Lesson the EXP, okay. Let's look at the others. After claiming the EXP, Feng Bujue headed to the other glass tubes. First, he claimed the puzzle cards. This time, he had drawn the puzzle card, sword, and the puzzle card, sweater. These 2 cards had nothing to do with the 12 constellations that he had planned, so he temporarily put them away. Then, he collected all the rewards of the side mission and hidden mission in one go. From the names, these items appeared to be the limbs of a person, or perhaps a creature. But in reality, they were just 4 cards. The basic design of the cards was the same. The front had a golden background with black edges, and the back had a coffee-colored swirl pattern with yellow edges. What the hell is going on? Feng Bujue took the 4 cards out from the glass tube and held them in his hands. Aren't these the cards from Yu-Gi-Oh!, a trading card game? As he complained, his eyes moved to one of the cards. Actually, there was a difference between this card and Yu-Gi-Oh!'s Duel Monster card because this card only had a picture on it. There was no race, star level, attack, and defense value, and there was no explanation. The picture on the first card was a golden right foot that looked like armor. There was a golden anklet around the ankle. Name: the sealed one's right foot. Item type: other quality, normal special effect. Unknown, bound after pickup. Remark: after the seal is removed, you will gain unlimited power. The second card had the word left foot printed on it. The description was the same as the first card, the only difference was the name. The sealed one's right wrist and sealed one's left wrist were the same. I've gotten something weird again. Feng Bujue finished reading the description and put the card away. And this is even scarier than the previous wind, forest, fire, mountain, and thunder series. The reason he said that was because he was quite familiar with the sealed series. He knew that, if he wanted to unlock the seal, he would need another card, the sealed Exordia. However, his reward was missing one of the 5 cards. It was like you had gotten 10, J, Q, and K when you were playing poker, but you were missing an ACE card. That was 0. It feels like, after I upgrade my inventory, I keep getting similar items, Feng Bujue said as he walked out of the storage room and returned to the elevator. Could this be the system's way of forcing the players to upgrade their inventory? He was not a conspiracy theorist. He was merely making a logical guess based on his experience playing other online games. The Photon computer in 2055 could perform many complicated calculations and adaptations, so it was not hard to realize the situation that Brother Jew mentioned. In fact, most game operators had already done this long ago. In some free online games, where storage space was already tight, when the players' backpacks and warehouses were not empty, the drop rate when they fought monsters would change. The more the players had no place to put their items, the more diverse the items dropped by monsters would be. However, it was varied, not increased drop rate. Even though the items dropped would increase in variety, they would still be trash of the same level. The main purpose of this was to make the players annoyed by the lack of storage space, and then charge their inventory out of anger. I'll have to find a chance to ask Woody or a high-level anomaly next time. As Feng Bujue thought about it, he switched the login lobby to the market. I can keep the jigsaw card sweater for now. After I gather the 12 zodiac sign series, the storage room will be empty, so I'll just leave it there. As for this jigsaw card sword, it is obviously a good card that can be used in many ways. I can use it as a trade. I can name my terms. Once Brother Ju exited the elevator, he headed straight for the jigsaw card trading house. 1 for 2. Before he reached the door, he had already made up his mind. I'll exchange it for a random card and a specific card. As long as the content of the specific card is related to Virgo. After leaving the trading house, Feng Bujue returned to the storage room to organize his stuff. Then, he logged out of the game. He predicted that, the next time he logged into the game, the card would have already been replaced. Phew! Feng Bujue, who stood up from the gaming hub, let out a long sigh. He stood up to stretch his body. This is the deluxe version after all. My waist and back are no longer sore. It feels more comfortable than lying in bed. Then you can just hook up your esophagus and urinary catheter and lie in there for the rest of your life. Arthas, who was on the sofa, saw Brother Ju stand up, so he mocked him. Feng Bujue scoffed. Humph! If you want to be cocky, you can only do it now. Wait until I master the Book of Hidden Armor. Then you'll beat me back to my original form and torture me as you wish? Arthas interrupted him and replied with a cold laugh. Ha! Didn't you read the information that Gu Chen gave you? Do you know what level a normal ghost hunter needs to reach to defeat a demon of my level? I read it. Feng Bujue replied. Old Gu even specifically noted in the information. He used a sloppy attitude to cultivate for 5 years and reached that level. Brother Ju continued arrogantly. Then with my talent, my diligence, and my looks, it should be around 5 months. Putting aside your baseless and shameless self-confidence. Arthas squinted her cat eyes and continued. Is cultivation related to looks, meow? She paused for a moment. Also, is that Gu Chen crazy? Why would he make such a pointless note? Actually, he added such a note at the end of almost all the information, and he used his own personal experience as an example to explain it. He said, "It's for my reference." Feng Bujue shrugged and said. Also, he left a paragraph at the end of the information. The general meaning is, if your cultivation progress is faster than mine, then it must be because I'm not serious. If it's slower than me, then it's because you're stupid. Hey. Arthas's cat mouth twitched. Could it be your hard work for the past half a month was all because of this taunt? How is that possible? Feng Bujue tilted his head and replied. Do I look like such a childish person? Of course you look like it. Suddenly, another person's voice sounded from the living room. I say. Feng Bujue instantly recognized who it was. His expression changed abruptly and he slowly turned his head. Can't you knock on the door before coming in, sorry? When Li Ruoyu replied, she threw the travel bag on her shoulder onto the sofa and put down the luggage in her hand. I came in from the kitchen window. This is the 13th floor. Heroine. For some reason, Brother Bujue's forehead was already soaked in cold sweat. By the way, why did you bring so much luggage? To move in. Ruoyu's answer was concise and comprehensive. Oh ho, a pink sex life with Ruoyu at this time. Arthas on the sofa suddenly interrupted and said with a wretched smile. The next second, she returned to her usual lazy and irritable attitude and continued. This was the thought that flashed through Feng Bujue's mind just now. As soon as she finished speaking, the two people and the cat fell into a short silence. 3 seconds later, well, you saw it too. Feng Bujue began to talk nonsense in a serious manner. She's a psychopath whose gender and race have been distorted. While her physical condition is abnormal, her mental state is also extremely unstable. This may be related to the abuse by her parents when she was young, or it may be caused by the accumulated pressure of long-term work. I'm still investigating the specific reasons, so you don't have to take what she said to heart. Ruo Yu looked at Brother Bujue expressionlessly and responded. Then, she turned to look at Arthas and said, I'll move in. You don't have any objections, right? Hey! The owner of the house is here. Feng Bujue roared. However, the other two ignored him and continued to talk among themselves. Do whatever you want, Miao. Arthas also looked at Ruo Yu and replied, as long as it doesn't affect my work. Okay. Ruo Yu said, then I'll bother you. You decided on your own. Feng Bujue was shocked. Then, Ruo Yu and Arthas finished greeting each other and glanced in the direction of the bedroom. From tonight onwards I'll sleep in that room. This is a little too fast. Feng Bujue squinted at Ruo Yu and muttered. You can sleep anywhere outside the bedroom. Be casual. He didn't expect her to say the second half of the sentence. What do you mean by casual? Feng Bujue's veins were popping out. This is my house, right? Even if you're renting it, it's my house. Oh, right. My game cabin will probably be delivered tomorrow morning. I originally wanted to ask the shipping company to deliver it today, but because that kind of super large electronic equipment can only be delivered after it's disassembled, it's too late today. Ruo Yu said, I have to go to the gallery tomorrow morning to do something. You can take care of it at home. Call me if you need anything. You sound like the mistress of the house. You have your own way of doing things. Feng Bujue stared at her with his dead fish eyes and began complaining. Are you planning to force me to try out marriage? Don't you think you've skipped an important step? Why don't you wait a few more days? I'll prepare a love letter of a few thousand words and fax it to you. We'll start from. You're thinking too much. Ruo Yu interrupted Brother Ju with her usual cold tone. I moved here mainly to supervise and protect you. Huh. Feng Bujue was stunned. That, Ruo Yu, I know you have psionic power, but the job of supervision and protection. He pointed at Arthas. She's already doing it. You don't have to, our standpoints are slightly different. Ruo Yu continued. We can't be lumped together. Hearing the word standpoints, Feng Bujue's expression changed slightly. Ruo Yu, are you also? If you have anything to say, save it for dinner. Ruo Yu did not let Brother Ju continue. I'll go to the room to put down my luggage. You can cook first. Wait. Feng Bujue saw Ruo Yu turn around and run to the bedroom. He quickly stepped forward. Let me help you. At this moment, a cold gaze was cast over. It was murderous and contained spiritual power. Go cook. Yes, sir. An hour later, Ruo Yu walked out of the room with a large backpack and a huge garbage bag. Feng Bujue's dinner was almost ready. All that was left was to set the table. This bag is something you'll use often. I've already sorted it out for you so that you won't always come to my room. Ruo Yu walked into the living room and put down the backpack in her right hand. She raised her voice and said to Brother Ju in the kitchen. You said something like, my room, without any sense of awkwardness. Feng Bujue narrowed his eyes and mumbled to himself, 1 hour ago, this was still my room. A few seconds later, Ruo Yu dragged the garbage bag and walked to the door. This bag. You can go downstairs and throw it away now. I don't want to see what's inside ever again. Can I open it and check? What if there's something I want to keep? I'll count to 3. Okay, throw it away. I'll change my shoes and go. In the evening, at 6:20, Brother Ju and Ruo Yu were already sitting at the dining table. There were 3 dishes and a soup on the table. They were all home-cooked dishes. It's really good. Ruo Yu ate very well. She would only speak when there was no food in her mouth. It's much better than what my dad cooks. You're flattering me. Feng Bujue casually responded. He was not so particular. He was stuffing food into his mouth as he spoke. Well, since you're talking about your father, Brother Ju paused for half a second before he took the opportunity to ask, "You moving to my place? Are your parents okay with it?" When I first mentioned it to them, they were a little dissatisfied. Ruo Yu replied. "Yeah. I knew it." Feng Bujue dragged out his tone. "They think that it's better for us to get married first before living together." Ruo Yu always had a delay of 1 or 2 seconds in the latter half of her sentence. Feng Bujue spat out the rice that he had not finished chewing. Cough, cough. He coughed out the rice that had entered his windpipe and said with difficulty, "I really don't know whether to say they are too open-minded or too conservative." Later, I explained to them why I moved here and why. Ruo Yu, on the other hand, had a calm expression. She continued, "They understood and expressed their confidence in you." Ahem. What do you mean by confident? Feng Bujue's breathing gradually calmed down. "There are 2 meanings," Ruo Yu replied. "First, they think you're a good person and they trust you. Second, you're no match for me anyway." Brother Ju opened his mouth and realized that he was speechless. Then, "Let's talk about the question you wanted to ask me earlier." Ruo Yu brought the topic back on track. "Don't worry, I'm not from the 9 sciences, nor do I belong to any government organization." At this point, she changed the topic. "But I do have some connections with the 9 sciences." Feng Bujue continued in a low voice. "Are you one of their surveillance targets?" "No." Ruo Yu denied his speculation and said in a very calm tone, "Simply put, Gu Chen is my grandfather's brother-in-law." Chapter 773. August 4th. For Feng Bujue, this was a very difficult day. He did not know if it was a coincidence or a scheme, but he received a free luxurious gaming cabin, but lost his own room. He did not know if it was luck or misfortune, but he was living under the same roof with a beautiful woman, but he was no match for her. That night, he sat in front of the computer, opened a document and typed the first line of words. "The furthest distance in the world is not the distance between life and death, but between you in the bedroom and me in the living room." After he was done, he proudly kept this sentence. He was probably going to write it in a novel in the future. "I want to take a shower." At 9:30, Ruo Yu walked out of the bedroom and greeted Brother Bujue, who was sitting in the living room. "Oh." Feng Bujue casually responded. His eyes moved away from the computer screen for 2 seconds, and glanced at Ruo Yu. At this moment, Ruo Yu had already changed into a very loose short-sleeved t-shirt and a pair of pure cotton shorts. She had also changed into slippers on her feet. Looking at the way she dressed, she really did treat this place as her home, very casual. "I brought some toiletries." Ruo Yu carried a basin full of things to the bathroom, and said as she walked, "Other than towels, toothbrushes, and bathrobes, you can use the rest if you want. I have my own shampoo and soap." Feng Bujue's eyes quickly returned to the screen. "I don't need it." "I know." Ruo Yu turned back and said, "I just thought that the things you used were too bad, so I suggested this." After that, she went into the bathroom, closed the door, and latched the door from the inside. "Tsk." Feng Bujue tilted his head and whispered, "It's fine as long as it's clean and comfortable. Why are you so particular?" "A woman's body needs to be carefully maintained and cared for." Meow. Arthas, who was sitting on the sofa, interrupted again. "How can we be like you, using those inferior products all year round?" Meow. "Oh. This is the reason why you stole my Citizen ID a while ago to order the top brand of hair care products online, right?" Feng Bujue turned to glare at Arthas. "I'm already being polite by not asking you to send me for a manicure." Meow. Arthas replied calmly. "Do you know, the price of that bottle is enough for me to buy a year's worth of shampoo and soap," Brother Ju said. "If it weren't for the fact that I'm afraid of getting skin diseases, I would have tried some. It's not that the things I bought are too good, it's that you're using them too poorly." Arthas' tone changed slightly at this point. 2 seconds later, she sighed. "Sigh, let's not talk about it anymore. You're just like that." There are some things that you may never realize. It doesn't matter how smart you are. Feng Bujue was stunned for a second. What do you mean? What is it? It's nothing, I'm just saying, meow, Arthas said and then turned her head away. I'm going to sleep for a while. Don't disturb me, meow. Feng Bujue stared at the cat for a few seconds before shrugging and mumbling, weird. Then he turned his attention back to the computer. Actually, what Arthas wanted to say to Brother Ju was, you're too harsh on yourself, but you're very kind to your friends. But she did not say that out loud. Her mission was to monitor and protect this human. If she built a bond of friendship or even kinship with him, it would be very detrimental to her mission. Therefore, she should not be the one to say those words. 20 minutes later, Ruo Yu walked out from the bathroom. Her head was wrapped in a towel and she wore a bathrobe. Once she stepped out, she turned to Brother Ju and asked, Bujue, are you going to log into the game later? Of course. Feng Bujue answered without raising his head. After all, I'm going to spend the night in the gaming hub. Normally speaking, Brother Ju would play the game in the first half of the night and leave the hub to use the toilet in the second half of the night. Then he would return to his bed to sleep. Oh, okay. Then help me pass a message to Su Huaishang. Tell her that I'm busy today so I won't be able to queue with her. Ruo Yu said and turned to walk into the bedroom. Feng Bujue turned to look at Ruo Yu. When did the two of you start hanging out together? After we left the sandbox, we added each other as friends. Ruo Yu replied, in the past half-month that you've been AFK, we've played a few scenarios together, and it feels like we've gotten along quite well. Then why do you want me to pass the message? Feng Bujue asked again. He looked rather nervous. I don't get along with her. Because you added her as friends as well. Ruo Yu answered, furthermore, you're right in front of me. Is there a need for me to go out of my way to contact someone else? Oh, I see. Feng Bujue sighed in relief. I understand. What time do you want me to pass the message? There's no rush. Ruo Yu added, she has to complete the studio's quota before she can move freely. Therefore, we've arranged to meet at 2 a.m. She paused. You only need to log in before 2 a.m. If it's convenient for you, you can contact her. If it's not convenient, you can send her an email. She has set up a friend email reminder V1. 10 Social Systems new feature in her login space. She will definitely receive the message. Understood. Feng Bujue replied, I'll go to bed in an hour at most. I'll be online at midnight. Then, Ruo Yu suddenly slowed down. I'm going back to my room. You should rest early too. You have something to do tomorrow morning. Feng Bujue replied. Good night, good night. A few seconds later, the bedroom door closed. Silence returned to the living room. Only the sound of the computer's fan was still making a slight whirring sound. God! Arthas wagged its tail and broke the short silence. I'm watching from the side. I'm worried for you guys. I don't understand what you're saying. Feng Bujue squinted his eyes. Arthas ignored Brother Ju's quibbling and continued, since both of you want to spend more time with each other, why do you guys have to go your own ways? I feel like there's nothing to say for the time being. Are we supposed to sit face to face and stare at each other? Feng Bujue asked. Can't we? Arthas asked back. Is there a rule that says the two of you can't sit together and stare at each other? Don't you think that's a bit silly? Brother Ju replied without confidence. Silly? Arthas continued in disappointment. You're a human, Feng Bujue. You were born silly. There are only a few people in this world who aren't silly, and they are the most pitiful. Chapter 774. At midnight, Feng Bujue logged into the game in sleeping mode. After entering the login lobby, the first thing he did was open up the social tab and found the username Su Huaishang. Very good. Seeing that she was in the game, he was overjoyed. This saved him the trouble of contacting her. Then Brother Ju used the shortcut option in his friend list to enter the mailbox interface. He used a simple sentence to send a message to Su Wai Shang on behalf of Ryu. After that, he went through his own mailbox. Coincidentally, the notification from the puzzle card trading company arrived. Feng Bujue knew from the title that the puzzle card sword had already been traded away. 5 minutes later, he ran to the trading company and returned to the storage room. Ha ha! Finally! Feng Bujue held the puzzle card lowly in his hand and laughed excitedly. The time to witness a miracle has come. His expression, choice of words, combined with the item in his hand, it really made people want to mock him. A combination of 12 cards. Brother Ju mumbled as he took out the cards from the box. The chance of getting a legendary equipment should be very high. For those familiar with the plot of the book, this kind of self-flagging behavior usually led to tragedy, but that was how Brother Ju liked it. He placed the other card, puzzle card, tier, into the storage box and took out the 11 cards that he had accumulated for a long time. When all 12 cards were in his hand, he called out the menu and selected combination. Found a possible combination sequence. A heartening announcement from the system entered Feng Bujue's ears, and the synthesized list floated up before his eyes. Card set name: 12 zodiac signs, consumes puzzle card sheep *2, puzzle card ox, puzzle card twins, puzzle card crab, puzzle card lion, puzzle card lowly, puzzle card libra, puzzle card scorpion, puzzle card bow, puzzle card bottle, puzzle card fish. You have selected the combination, 12 zodiac signs. Please confirm. 2 seconds later, another announcement came. Feng Bujue of course chose to confirm. Then the 12 cards dissolved into white light and reassembled into a card in his hand. The design of the card was very intricate. With the stars as the background and the sun as the outline, the images of the 12 constellations were arranged in a ring pattern. The card set has been generated. Would you like to exchange it for equipment? Even though the system announcement came quickly, this time, Brother Ju did not choose yes immediately. After all, this was something that he had accumulated for a long time. Emotionally speaking, it was very different from the kind of card set that he had randomly assembled. Therefore, he looked at the deck of cards for a minute before he reluctantly chose to exchange for it. As the card set dissolved into white light, a white light appeared on the other side of the storage room and then turned into a glass pillar. Feng Bujue turned to walk over. He waited for several seconds before he took out the equipment inside the pillar. Name: Staff of Asclepius. Item type: weapon quality. Legendary offense points. Medium element. None special effect 1. Power of Evolution, doubles a player's basic physical skill and stamina points, increases the player's stamina points recovery speed to 1000 seconds. Duration, 3 minutes. Cooldown, 30 minutes. Special Effect 2. Power of Summoning, doubles a player's summoned creature's maximum mana points and stamina points, increases the player's stamina points recovery speed to 100 seconds. Duration, 3 minutes. Cooldown, 30 minutes. Special Effect 3. Power of Immortality, grants a player the ability to revive once in a scenario. Limited to 1 use per scenario. Equip requirement: Medic Mastery A, bound after equipping. Remark: a staff that possesses the power of evolution, spirituality, and immortality. It symbolizes the noble will of the god of medicine. It really is legendary. Feng Bujue's expression chilled immediately. But, he screamed, I can't use it. He grabbed the golden staff with the golden snake carving wrapped around it and danced around it, as if he wanted to break it. You've been calling for *T to come out, haven't you? Do you think it is easy for me to save up this card for the past few months? It was unclear who he was angry at, but in any case, he calmed down after a few minutes. Sigh. So be it. Brother Ju sighed. Toss it into the guild storage. Miss N's medic mastery is not far from level A. With this, she will be able to join the ranks of the top players. He was telling the truth. Anyone, as long as they could equip this staff, their ranking on the overall player ranking would skyrocket. Just based on the staff's third effect alone, all the guilds in Thriller Paradise, regardless of whether they had a gaming studio or not, would fight to be your friend. At this point, there would be people who would say, since this was a bound item, why didn't Brother Jew sell it? Admittedly, that was a good idea. To be fair, if Feng Bujue really wanted to sell something like the Staff of Asclepius, he would not have needed to go to the auction house in the game. He could have just gone to the trading site for virtual items and listed the price for the item for around 100,000 RMB, and he would have been able to sell it easily. It was not that Brother Jew had not thought about this before, but he did not do it. The Feng Bujue of today was no longer the casual player from 4 months ago who only wanted to play the game to cure his illness and earn some extra cash. Be it from the knowledge that he possessed or his own ability, he was no longer a normal person. His motivation for joining the game had changed as well. At the moment, compared to money in real life, he felt like it was more important to improve his team in the game. After placing the Staff of Asclepius into the guild storage and sending an email to Hua Jian, Feng Bujue decided to stay in the login lobby and read the forum. Since Xiao Tan, Xiao Ling, and Hua Jian were not online yet, he decided to wait for them. He could make use of this time to make up for the time that he had not logged into the game for half a month. The internet addict died on the street. The culprit was acquitted. Brother Jew had just opened the forum when he saw this post at the top of the homepage. It was tagged with the word "popular." After reading the title once, he clicked on the post. Recently, the Supreme Court of XX City made the final judgment on the hotly discussed case of Bentley ran over the internet addict and acquitted the culprit. The defense lawyer argued that the young man known as Chunibu Hammer was addicted to the internet for many years, causing him to be in a trance. Therefore, he was judged to be an incompetent person. It was a dereliction of duty for the custodian to allow such a person to walk on the street. As for the prosecution lawyer's argument that the Bentley owner bribed the police, destroyed evidence at the scene, and falsified alcohol test results, the court rejected all of these arguments due to insufficient evidence. After Feng Bujue finished reading the post, he sighed. This kind of annoying social news again. No wonder it became a popular post. Brother Jew was already used to similar reports. These days, the media was happy to hype up negative news. The more this kind of news could stimulate the emotions of the netizens, the more attention it would attract. After all, the only thing that could calm everything down was time. At most, it would take 10 days to half a month for the netizens to do what they were supposed to do. Someone has already maxed out? Brother Jew continued to read and soon came across another title. Another record of maxing out. Order. Once again they proved that they are the true kings. Regardless of whether regulation was the so-called king or not, the ghostwriters they hired were really dumb. This kind of title was practically screaming at the world, "I just took 50 cents for my post." Feng Bujue clicked on the post and got a brief understanding of the situation. So, during the half a month he was AFKing, Phantom Dawn had reached level 50. When he reached the maximum level, all the players in Thriller Paradise received the system announcement. This kid, after being tortured by loot at the tournament for the best, he had learned from his painful experience. He had toned down his casual attitude and played seriously for more than a month. Now, even the prideful Shiva from Brahman had to admit that in terms of combat ability, Phantom Dawn was the strongest player in Thriller Paradise. Moreover, this situation was likely to remain unchanged for a long time in the future. Of course, there were those who were convinced, and there were those who were not. The people from Zombie Blade were obviously not convinced. Perhaps no one would believe it, but in the field of leveling up, Regulation's biggest competitor was not Brahmin Blades or Jiang Hu, but Zombie Blade. The reason was simple. The people from Zombie Blade had used drugs. As mentioned earlier, the drugs they used could suppress the terror points to a certain extent. Even though they were not as fearless as Brother Jew, compared to players who had not used drugs, they were much better. The management of Zombie Blade knew that in terms of top players, they were no match for the other studios. After Zombie Blade as king left, the gap between them grew even bigger. Therefore, the strategy that they came up with was to use their advantage in terror points to have all the top players clear single-player normal dungeons and aim for the record of being the first player to max level in the server. But to their surprise, in the end, they still failed to catch up to Phantom Dawn and failed at the last minute. With such an ending, how could they not be angry? Therefore, on the day Phantom Dawn maxed out, a war outside the game started. Chapter 776. In terms of overall strength, Regulation was definitely more powerful than Zombie Blade, but when it came to playing tricks, Zombie Blade was more familiar with the game. After Phantom Dawn became the first player with max level in the server, Zombie Blade only needed half a day to come up with a plan. The water army that they had under their command was mobilized after they received the plan. They started to attack Regulation and Phantom Dawn with all kinds of malicious comments that were made out of nothing. Instantly, many unfounded and ridiculous rumors started to circulate on all the forums related to Thriller Paradise, and they attracted all kinds of replies. Questioning, guessing, provoking, slandering for no reason. As the saying goes, when the forest is big enough, there are all kinds of birds. The internet is a very good window for us to see the various kinds of people in the world. It also allows us to see the intelligence, quality, character, and character of many people. Of course, the Water Army could only fool a small portion of people for a short period of time. Those with a discerning eye could tell who was behind the Water Army with one glance. As long as one had a certain level of intelligence and awareness, they would have the ability to distinguish between right and wrong. In less than 2 days, the Internet Water Army that Zombie Blade sent out had disappeared because they had no way of replying in their own post. No matter how they argued, they were just asking for humiliation. This battle outside the game could be said to be a quick one. Zombie Blade, the loser, did not even manage to hurt Regulation. If anything, he was the one who got the short end of the stick. Sigh. So many things have happened in the past half a month. Fong Bujue commented after reading the thread. If Zombie Blade's Water Army is cute, then Regulation's Water Army is cute and dumb. Then, he flipped through the hundreds of pages of forum records and scanned through all the threads from the past 10 days. He also browsed through some of the popular threads and threads that he was interested in. Threads like the correct use of puzzle cards, how to reach level 40 in 1 month, wake up Tycoon Snipers, dear friends, please don't underestimate growth-type equipment and skills, and other posts with sharp viewpoints, became popular posts that received widespread attention and discussion. Obviously, as time moved on, the players' understanding of Thriller Paradise matured. Now, whether it was character attributes, equipment, skills, specializations, spiritual weapons, or even Soul's Eye, there were already people discussing them, and many of them were quite correct and brilliant. There are quite a lot of smart people. Fong Bujue browsed the forum for more than 2 hours and suddenly felt that he was a little outdated. There are some weird arguments that even I haven't considered. I really have to come to the forum more in the future. 2 hours later, only 12 minutes had passed in the real world. The Underworld frontline members were still not online. Therefore, Brother Jew returned to the Thriller box and started to browse through the growth type, equipment, and skills. Previously, Ruo Yu's Sainthood and Bright Jade skill had already given Fong Bujue some inspiration. Today, after reading a certain thread on the forum, he instantly made the decision to purchase a very powerful growth-type item. The ID of the thread was Blood Rose. She used herself as an example to explain the benefits that growth-type equipment would bring in the later stages of the game. It was logical and convincing. Speaking of which, she was a professional player from Red Cherry, Su Huaishang's colleague. Before joining Thriller Paradise, she was just a second-tier player. But recently, as her level increased, her power rose to the top, and she relied on the help of these growth-type items. There are so many things here that I can't finish reading them. Feng Bujue returned to the Thriller box and opened the familiar interface, but what awaited him was more than 10,000 pages of data. And these were just skills. There were probably tens of thousands of pages of equipment and items. Moreover, these data were constantly updated and constantly changing. There's no other way. Let's filter. Brother Ju hesitated for a few seconds before deciding to use the system's filtering function. He filtered out the items that he couldn't use and the items that were too cheap. He only looked at the items that were worth more than 10,000 skill points. After half an hour, he locked onto an item. The name, I_wanna_B_ a belt type, armor, quality, excellent defense, weak attribute, none special effect. Each time you receive an attack, the equipment will increase your defense a little bit. Prerequisites: waist size below 32 yards, binds after pickup. Remark: every death means a new beginning, and every new beginning means a new death. When your blood splatters everywhere you go, the pain will be as natural as breathing. An ambiguous name, an ambiguous equipment condition, and an ambiguous remark. It was such an ambiguous equipment that had an unimaginable price, 12,000 skill points. Currently, Feng Bujue only had 12,134 skill points. If he bought this, then his skill points would be left with only a fraction. However, Brother Ju bought this item without hesitation. It wasn't because he was rich or willful, but because he thought it was worth it. Most people, after reading the description and price of this item, would just ignore it and forget about it. But Brother Ju was different. He would think, why was this item so expensive? The system was fair, and the price given by the system was more reliable than the subjective evaluation of any player. Therefore, this item was definitely not mispriced. There had to be a secret behind it. After reading the description a few times, Feng Bujue understood. The special effect of, each time you receive an attack, the equipment will increase your defense a little bit, was the problem. This special effect didn't have a duration, a cooldown, or an upper limit. If you thought about it carefully, you would realize, this was a very scary thing. Beep beep, just a few seconds after Brother Ju bought this item, he heard two short beeps. He looked at the game menu and saw that Xiao Tan had sent him a message and a party invitation. Just in time. Brother Ju muttered as he turned around and walked back to the login lobby. On the way back to the elevator, he had already replaced the Echo armor with the I_wanna_B_A_ belt. Both items were belts. The latter was an old piece of equipment that had accompanied Brother Ju for a long time. At this point, it could be considered to have died. It was just waiting to enter the disintegrator. Yo, Xiao Tan, long time no see. How have you been? Feng Bujue came in front of the touch screen and said after picking up the call. It hasn't been that long, just 2 weeks. Xiao Tan replied. The recent change is probably that Xiao Ling and I are living together. What? Feng Bujue's voice was raised. We've been dating for a long time. She asked to live together, so I agreed. Xiao Tan continued. You beast. Feng Bujue replied. Hey. She was the one who asked, okay? Xiao Tan lowered his voice and replied. Furthermore, don't you and Sister Rain know about that little thing between us as well? I don't know anything, and you don't have to explain it to me. I'm a pure person, and I don't want to hear about your dirty daily life. Feng Bujue replied shamelessly. Friendship between men is like this. All our blessings and happiness are contained in trash talk. Okay. With the chemistry between Xiao Tan and Brother Ju, he naturally knew that Brother Ju was joking. Then let's talk about something else. Hua Jian is not online today, and Xiao Ling said she wasn't feeling well and wanted to go to bed early, so I came here alone. Where do you usually sleep? Feng Bujue asked. Don't mind the details. Xiao Tan replied awkwardly. Anyway, it's just the two of us tonight. We don't have to wait for them. Chapter 777. The scenario was based on the famous detective in comic Shua, so if there was a similarity, it was not a coincidence. After chatting for a few minutes, they decided to do a normal team dungeon together as a warm-up. Then, Xiao Tan transferred the party leader's authority to Brother Ju and went to the storage room to prepare for the scenario. Feng Bujue used this time to put the echo armor into the storage before returning to the login lobby. After they were ready, Brother Ju clicked on the touch screen and joined the queue. Feng Bujue, level 49, Wang Tanji, level 46. Please select the game mode that your team will join. You have selected Team Survival Mode, Normal. Please confirm. Confirmed. The number of team members has been randomized, 2. Your team has joined the queue. Matching complete. Coordinating nerve connection. Generating scenario. Downloading. Please wait a moment. At that point, Brother Ju and Xiao Tan lost control of their bodies and entered a first-person perspective. Welcome to Thriller Paradise. Huff huff huff. 2 seconds later, a wretched male voice said, and after that, he chuckled 3 times like he was acting cute. Download complete. You are currently in Team Survival Mode, Normal. A scenario introduction is provided in this mode, and there is a chance of triggering hidden side quests and special world building. Reward for clearing the scenario: randomly draw a learnable skill card. Playing the scenario introduction soon. The game will start immediately after that. This looks like a normal scenario, Feng Bujue said. It all depends on the reward for clearing the scenario. The scenario had just started, and he was already considering what he would get after clearing the scenario. Obviously, for Brother Ju, clearing a normal team dungeon was a piece of cake. There is a demon living in the courtyard. All the companions that I can rely on are dead. Hey, what's going on? Before the opening cinematic came out, 2 lines of lyrics sung in Japanese sounded in his ears. Moreover, the melody and content of the song seemed familiar. This gave Feng Bujue an ominous feeling. Dedicating my youth to volleyball. But everyone looks like they're dead. I think I know what song this is. Feng Bujue said, isn't this the OP of the first season of Riwa? Funny Manga. Riwa is a manga published by Yukinosuke Sasada in Shueisha's monthly Shonen Jump in January 2000. It's famous for its nonsensical plot and fast-paced. You and I are not friends. My friend. He's your friend. That's the general idea, so don't get carried away. They even changed the last line. Brother Ju mumbled. Of course, that's not the main point. The main point is, what kind of joke is this? Before he could recover from the song, the opening cinematic officially began to play. And the style of this CG reminded him of another script or sandbox that he had passed before. Compared to South Park, this is a different kind of novelty, isn't it? Feng Bujue looked at the out-of-shape drawing and commented coldly. Compared to the original One Punch Man, this is about as good as it is. A famous detective? Question that came out of nowhere opened the introduction. Hi, in the next second, a pink, anthropomorphic rabbit appeared on the screen. It had hands, feet, and claws, but its palms and head still retained the characteristics of an animal. Wearing a green sleeveless top, a hot pink skirt and yellow shoes, she stood on a light green lawn and waved to the camera. Behind her was a background that looked like a child's graffiti, houses, trees, mountains that were obviously disproportionate to the scale of the character, and the blue sky and white clouds that looked like a picture. Bunny Mei-chan from Zoological Elementary School's 4th grade Class 1. The chan here is a nickname added after a female's name in Japanese. When addressing a male, she would usually use ku or san. It may be used many times in this script, so it's noted here, is a famous detective. Once something happens, he will show off his skills with his proud reasoning. As long as he encounters a crime, whether it's true or not, he will report it to the police. He's a cold-hearted guy. It's here. It's here. Feng Bujue's soul of ridicule was instantly awakened. When I heard the theme song, I was wondering what kind of setting it would be. So, it's an animal elementary school. I can already foresee the level of pain in the balls in this scenario. Perhaps it's the legendary egg-cracking level. The narration continued, leaving aside the question of what egg-cracking level Feng Bujue was talking about. Today is the first day of the new semester. The first thing Mr. Panda announced after he walked up to the podium was that there would be a transfer student moving to Year 4 Class 1. Following the announcement, the cinematic cut to the classroom. It was a normal elementary school classroom, and it was filled with anthropomorphic animals like cats, dogs, pigs, and elephants. It did not look out of place. The transfer student is Aiko the penguin from South Pole Elementary School, right? Feng Bujue looked at the screen and said. Based on his memory of the animation, Brother Ju came up with the plot. But he had miscalculated. There are 2 transfer students this time. Huh! Feng Bujue was startled. 2? Wait a minute. Could it be? They are Mao Taro and Jin Izumi's son Taro. God! Feng Bujue did not believe in God, so he used the name of God as an interjection. At this point, an anthropomorphic cat and an anthropomorphic falcon walked into the classroom one after another. Students, these are Mao Taro and son Taro, who transferred from South Pole Elementary School. Please get along well from now on, Mr. Panda said. Why is it that before the scenario has even started, I already want to F*King quit? Due to too many complaints, Feng Bujue's balls started to hurt. Even though he had not regained control of his body, so he could not feel any pain at all. I am Mao Taro. My specialty is deduction. I was known as the famous detective at my previous school. I am son Taro, a member of the detective club. I am Mao Taro's partner. The 2 transfer students made a very bold self-introduction, and the whole class turned to look at them curiously. However, at that moment, from the last row of the classroom, a sharp gaze was trained on them, and the owner of that gaze was Tu Mei. They said they are the detectives. This is not good. Tu Mei-chan. Xiongji, who sat to Tu Mei's right, widened his eyes. He whispered to Tu Mei, a strong opponent has arrived. And there are 2 of them this time. This is even worse than when Aiko the penguin transferred here. What the? Are you still in school? When the camera moved to Xiongji, even Feng Bujue was shocked. The law in your universe is a bit too lax. You were arrested so many times, but you were still able to get out. Note: in the related stories of Detective Tu Mei, all the criminals involved were Xiongji. Xiongji's crimes were very obvious, and he confessed every time without being pressed. The ending of every story was the arrest of Xiongji. This is very interesting. Tu Mei smiled. I wish to see their deduction ability. At this point, the introductory cinematic stopped. Feng Bujue and Wang Tanji regained their mobility in 1 second. However, the characters that they controlled were not Feng Bujue and Wang Tanji, but Mao Taro and son Taro. Main quest has been triggered. This time, the main quest was straightforward. It refreshed right after the introductory cinematic. Brother Bujue immediately opened the quest tab to take a look, and then, he was completely shocked. Complete the scenario with 33 chapters. F***. This was Feng Bujue's first reaction. At that moment, the system's voice rang in his and Xiao Tan's ears again. The pressure of full attendance, the exhaustion of the manuscripts, the twist of life, the twist of inspiration. On this day, the legendary detective sealed in the darkness has awakened once more. He and his assistant will write a brand new legend. Chapter 778. Mao Taro, Sun Taro, you two can sit over there, Ms. Panda said to Brother Ju and Xiao Tan after the system audio ended. Feng Bujue looked in the direction the teacher was pointing at. The over there, she mentioned, was the two seats in front of Xiongji and Tu Mei. Okay, Ms. Panda, Brother Ju answered calmly. Yes, Ms. Panda. Teacher. Xiao Tan mimicked his teacher and followed up. Then, the two of them carried their backpacks and walked to the second last row of the classroom. They sat in front of Xiongji and Tu Mei respectively. Then, students, we will officially start our class. After the two transfer students were seated, Ms. Panda said, turn to the first page of your textbook. As she said that, she turned around to pick up a piece of chalk and started to write a mathematical formula on the blackboard. I say, Brother Ju, what is going on with this scenario? When Xiao Tan saw the teacher turn around, he leaned to the side and whispered to Brother Ju next to him, it's one thing to talk about the sun and the worldview, but what is this weird main mission? I'm also trying to figure it out. Feng Bujue whispered. If the end of one incident means the end of the story, then this scenario is practically impossible to clear. He glanced at Xiongji, who sat behind him, and lowered his voice. After all, Xiongji's crimes are usually solved within 30 seconds from the moment Tu Mei intervenes in the investigation. Main quest triggered. The system seemed to be replying to Brother Ju, and then a new main quest popped up. After hearing that, Brother Ju and Xiao Tan exchanged a look. They opened the game menu and looked at the mission tab. Limit the number of times Xiongji has been arrested to 10 times, including the 10th time. The meaning of the second main mission was clearer, and next to the mission was the words, current number of arrests, 0. There's even a countdown. When Xiao Tan saw the content of the mission, he couldn't help but grumble, since there are 10 chances, it shouldn't be that hard, right? How many times can he commit crimes in the 33 chapters? This is a normal difficulty scenario. How hard do you want it to be? Brother Ju asked. Also, aren't you underestimating Xiongji Kuan's ability to commit crimes? Xiao Tan also glanced at Xiongji, and then he whispered, by the way, Brother Ju, I was thinking, can we kill Xiongji? Feng Bujue asked. That way, he won't be arrested even once, right? Xiao Tan was obviously startled. Actually, what I wanted to say was, can we injure or imprison him, but the plan that you suggested seems feasible, but it is a bit cruel. It's all the same. Feng Bujue replied, in any case, it's not feasible. He shook his head. If we don't allow Xiongji to move freely, there won't be any incidents, and then how are we going to complete the 33 chapters? You have a point. Xiao Tan scratched the feathers on his temples. This is so troublesome. As soon as he finished speaking, he realized something and his expression changed. My hands. Yes, they have turned into something that looks like wings, but they are still divided into 5 parts. They have a certain degree of hardness and can be bent. Feng Bujue picked up where Xiao Tan left off. By the way, your head has turned into the shape of a falcon. If you don't believe me, you can touch your nose and mouth. They have turned into beaks. No wonder I felt something was off. As Xiao Tan spoke, he really used his anthropomorphic winged hand to touch his face. Speaking of which, my eyesight seems to have improved. That's normal. Falcons are one of the animals with the best vision. Feng Bujue replied, theoretically, from this distance, you should be able to see the fleas in my hair. I don't want to see that kind of thing. Xiao Tan continued. Mao Taro, son Taro. Just as the two of them were chatting happily, Teacher Panda had finished writing on the blackboard. She turned around and said, "Listen carefully in class, don't talk." Yes, Feng Bujue and Wang Tanji stretched their intonations and replied in unison. Their responses were very neat and in sync, as if they had rehearsed this countless times. A few seconds later, the two of them showed an interesting smile at the same time, because they both realized that the scene just now was like a replay of their elementary school days. With the bell ringing, the first class ended. At this moment, Feng Bujue and Wang Tanji suddenly became nervous. For them, class was a relaxing time. Even if they were suddenly called by the teacher to answer a question, grade 4 math was not difficult for them. However, it was different after class because, after class, Xiongji might make a move, meow. As expected, 1 minute after the teacher left the classroom, Miao Mei, the object of Xiongji's admiration, the victim of most of the incidents, screamed. Basically, Miao Mei's screams meant that an incident was about to happen. Even the other characters in this world knew that this was the beginning of a storyline. Tu Mei heard this and immediately turned her head. Huh? Did something happen? Xiongji immediately popped up from the side. This way, we'll be able to witness Bunny Mei-chan's long-awaited reasoning. As they spoke, Tu Mei and Xiongji walked towards Miao Mei's desk. Why are you so excited? Feng Bujue looked calm on the surface, but in his heart, he was thinking, you did it. You must have done it. Brother Bujue. At this time, Wang Tanji called out to Feng Bujue softly, let's go and take a look. Let's go. Feng Bujue nodded at him. Soon, 7 or 8 students in the class gathered around Miao Mei's desk. What's wrong? Miao Mei. Tu Mei went forward and asked, did someone put a cat's tongue in the desk? Your assumption is so scary, Tu Mei-chan, Xiongji added. Public morals are degenerating day by day, Tu Mei replied. There's nothing strange about it, Xiongji-kun. I think something was stolen. It should be. Xiongji did not continue Tu Mei's words, but made an assumption. Is that so? Tu Mei heard this and turned to look at Miao Mei. Sob. Miao Mei sobbed. My school swimsuit was stolen, sob. How? How shameless is this? We can't let this criminal go. Tu Mei-chan. Xiongji immediately shouted. At this time, a penguin in the group of people suddenly spoke. Today is the first day of school, so everyone will bring their school swimsuits from home to school. That means the crime happened after Miao Mei came to school, before the first class. The student who started making assumptions was naturally Detective Aiko the penguin, who had transferred from South Pole Elementary School. Yes, I think so too. Tu Mei continued. Everyone was chatting in the classroom this morning, so most of them were not sitting in their seat. The criminal could have easily stolen the swimsuit when no one was paying attention. The reasoning of these two guys is quite reliable. Feng Bujue squinted his eyes and looked at the two famous Japanese detectives. But his eyes moved to Xiongji. Is it really necessary to make assumptions about this kind of incident? Xiongji is wearing a female school swimsuit. Obviously, Brother Ju was not the only one who noticed this. About 3 seconds later, Tu Mei and Aiko the penguin turned to Xiongji, and their expressions changed. Bunny Mei-chan's eyes have become sharp. Xiongji looked at Tu Mei's huge eyes and exclaimed, this is the sign of Tu Mei-chan's inspiration. Because of this characteristic, Tu Mei also got the nickname, Tu Mei's terrible eyes. No criminal has ever been able to escape from his sharp eyes. Xiongji looked at Aiko the penguin, who was grinning, and exclaimed, Aiko the penguin's gums are exposed. Disgusting. No wonder he is the famous detective with the nickname Disgusting Gums. When he shows his gums, it is the moment of inspiration. Under the burning gaze of Tu Mei and Aiko the penguin, Xiongji explained these meaningless explanations seriously. He seemed to have forgotten that he was a criminal, as if he didn't know that he was wearing the stolen school swimsuit. God. Seeing this, Feng Bujue could only hold his forehead with his cat paw and sigh. 5 minutes later, the police who received the report arrived at the school. The police in this universe were wearing blue uniforms and black ties. The police badge on their police caps was a yellow pentagram pattern. The police officer who took Xiongji away was a white Labrador. He didn't handcuff Xiongji, but tied Xiongji's hands with a rope and led him into the police car. Accompanied by the sound of the police siren, Xiongji got into the car silently. As for the students of the 4th grade Class 1, they all stood at the school gate and watched as the pervert left. Main mission progress changed before the police car left their line of sight. The system notification rang. Brother Ju and Xiao Tan opened the mission tab to take a look. Xiongji's current number of arrests had jumped to 1. See that? This counts as the first time, Feng Bujue said. This is only the 2nd chapter, Xiao Tan added. Therefore, Brother Ju concluded in a low voice, the difficulty of this scenario is not as easy as you think. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.